exit 15.
And also, and it's easier for you to tell, but we all know that I-84 from time to time can be very windy, okay? Is there any indication that there is a wind in the road, a bend in the road? Because certainly right away you could say if there was, thinking about causes of an accident here, weather does not appear to be a case. Looks like a pretty straight run there though, right, Jim?
Yeah, it's hard to determine what exactly may have led to the accident itself, but you could see that the roadway in the immediate area around the accident scene does appear to be fairly straight. We should also mention it's unclear at this time, very early in the investigation stage, as whether any other vehicles were involved. There are not any other vehicles that we can tell that are obviously involved in the accident, but of course it's very early in this investigation stage.
I also noticed, Jim, that there were some rescue first responders who were out in the woods, sort of 10, 20, 30 yards from the bus, and it would be curious to think about what they were looking for out there. Did you notice that?
Yes, we did see some of those personnel. We could see them here in another area adjacent to where the bus is. It's unclear whether they are just making their way through that terrain to aid in assisting with anybody on board the bus, whether these first responders were coming from the other side of the highway, so now they're trying to make their way down that embankment and through that brush, or if they are in fact looking for any evidence related to the accident itself.
And one more thing, once again, we can see that there doesn't appear to be many first responders surrounding the bus. That may indicate that perhaps everyone is off the bus. We're not clear right now if people have all been taken off the bus. We don't know the number of people, and we don't know the extent of the injuries right now. So there's a lot of what we don't know right now. And Jim, I would imagine, based on where your perch is, there's some extraordinary backups right now on I-84.
Yes. So the bus itself, we could see that ladder. There's also some materials that appear to be bracing the bus on the opposite side, the side facing the ground. Yeah, we have not seen any new additional personnel really come down from that embankment area. It's unclear, again, if anybody is still on board that bus, the number and extent of injuries. And as far as the traffic goes, the highway, again, is closed in both directions. Again, this is just a few miles west of Interstate 84, Middletown, just west of exit 15. Now, these vehicles that we see are stuck in the closure. There is an exit just a few miles back, so that is where the majority of the traffic will now be detoured off of. On the other side, on the right side of your screen, you'll see no vehicles coming. It is many miles to the previous exit, about 10 miles or so to the next exit, so that is where we would believe traffic would be detoured off going in that direction. That is the eastbound lanes.
All right, Jim Smith and Chopper 2, stand by right now, and we're going to go to Mike Copey. He's the Public Safety Commissioner from the City of Rye. He's joining us now on the phone. Mike, what can you tell us about what we know? Well, apparently we do not have that just now. We can tell you right now, a charter bus has overturned on I-84 near Middletown, and traffic is closed in both directions. We do not have any reports right now of the number of injuries, but clearly there will be some. And it's not clear right now how many people have been taken off that bus right now. And we're also looking at, I can tell you, the response of emergency responders. That's always crucial in these situations. The question is, are people being taken off? Are they already off? What is the extent of the injuries? And a little further down the road, so to speak, what could have been the cause of this accident? Jim Smith, if you could come back in right now. I have to tell you, okay, we don't have, all right, Jim's not there right now. Another thing we could mention is that the number of ambulances in the area, which may or may not be going to local hospitals. We can tell you right now, joining us right now is Mike Copey, and he is a Rye Town, I believe, emergency manager. Mike, can you hear us?
Sure, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We're watching these pictures right now, just horrific pictures. What can you tell us? Do you have any information about injuries?
No, I don't have information about injuries, but clearly this is going to be a long investigation. Certainly once everybody is off the bus, they'll do a search of the area to see if anybody's been ejected from the bus, and then it's going to be a lengthy process to conduct an accident reconstruction to determine exactly what happened with the bus prior to the accident.
And in terms of the idea, one thing we were trying to figure out is if indeed anybody's been taken off the bus right now. Do you have any information about whether local hospitals have been receiving anybody?
Something like this with a mass casualty, all hospitals in any region would be put on notice. You know, at this point in time, I'm sure that all of the treatable passengers have been removed from the bus. At that point, they'll just make sure nobody's been ejected. They'll search the surrounding area to ensure that if anybody's been ejected, they're treated and tended to. And then it'll be a lengthy investigation, which will start with securing the area, collecting whatever evidence, and beginning the accident reconstruction.
Mike, as we said before, clearly it does not appear that weather was a part in this accident, but we all know that I-84 in certain areas can be windy. Are you familiar with this part of the road right there?
Yeah, I am familiar with the road. And, you know, although the weather may not initially appear, you want to see if there are any atmospheric conditions on the roadway. You know, could there have been some water or other debris on the roadway that may have contributed to the accident beginning?
And Mike, let me ask you, I mean, you've worked in the Governor's Office of Emergency Management. What do you think investigators are thinking about right now? I would imagine, first and foremost, has everybody been gotten out, correct?
Sure. The first responders are going to want to get everybody who can be treated to the hospital and make sure that their needs are being tended to. Then you're going to have to just secure this entire area, you know, get all of the cars that may be queued up out of the area, and just take a look at it from where did this accident begin, and was it just solely as a result of the accident, the operator, or did some other vehicle collide with the bus and begin this chain of events which results in the bus in the ditch like that? So it's going to take some time. First thing is they just have to secure the entire area.
Yeah, and it appears they're trying to do that right now. And once again, I believe traffic is closed in both directions, and there must be some serious delays all around that area. I would imagine you're advising people to stay away.
Sure, and I'm sure the Department of Transportation has implemented a diversion plan that will probably be in place for a number of hours, certainly well into the evening rush hour. And that'll allow the troopers to get out there on the scene and really collect all the evidence and begin to examine the entire scene.
Now, from time to time, Mike, we do have these accidents. I know you've handled situations like this before. What is your experience? What are first responders doing right now?
As I said, they've got to secure the scene, you know, assuming that everybody has been removed from the bus, in which it appears to be at this time. It's now just securing the scene and starting to collect evidence, documenting exactly where everything sits immediately after the collision. And that documentation will continue with the reconstruction, which is going to be key. It's going to determine the speed of the bus. It's going to determine what lane it was. Are there any skid marks? When did the bus leave the roadway? Did the bus overturn, or did it just slide on its side? That'll take a period of time to get done, though.
And it does appear that all those windows are out on the top part of the bus, which I think would give you an indication that people were coming out of those windows not so long ago.
Yeah, the buses typically have emergency exit windows that can be pushed out. In this case, because the bus rolled over, some of those windows could have just been pushed out by virtue of the crash and the collision, causing the windows to pop open.
And then, indeed, it would be easier to get people out much more quickly. In terms of previous accidents like this before, what are you thinking about in your history, in what you've covered before? When you see an accident like this, what comes to mind?
It certainly reminds us of the I-95 crash with the Worldwide Tours back in the New Rochelle-Bronx border. But these can happen anywhere at any time. So, you know, they're going to have a lengthy process to determine what happened. It's going to begin. They're going to speak with any witnesses who may have been seeing the bus. You know, how was the bus operating ahead of time? Was it speeding? Was it swerving? An interview of the bus driver, any of the other passengers on the bus. And, you know, I'm sure that this is underway right now.
Right now, you're looking at a crash of a charter bus on I-84 near Exit 15 in Middletown, just west of Exit 15. And right now, we do not have reports on the number of injuries in this case. With me on the phone is Mike Copey, emergency manager of RI. And Mike, let me ask you this. From the standing of where all the emergency responders are right now, it appears they're not in an urgent fashion right now. It appears they're walking around looking for perhaps to add to their investigation. So it would seem at least perhaps most people are off that bus.
At least the people who could be treated. You're certainly always concerned if anybody still is on the bus, if they haven't survived the crash. That would take a period of time for the medical examiner to arrive on the scene and assist with the removal of anyone who had not survived. at this point, like I said, the key thing now is just secure the area and allow the investigators and the reconstruction team to get in there, take a good look at it, take a look at the mechanical condition of the bus while it's still on its side there. Certainly at some point there'll be a thorough investigation or a thorough examination of the bus, the mechanical condition. But they'll start with that right now, right where it rests.
And let me ask you this, Mike. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Would you imagine that the people on this bus would have been wearing seatbelts?
There's no way to answer that.
No way to answer that. And I'll ask you this also. These buses, they're big, they're strong, they're sturdy. It would seem that would help in a crash like this, correct?
And certainly, the structural integrity of the bus, keeping the bus intact, certainly would help. And you'd want to see the bus intact and hope that it didn't break apart.
And I would also add, it is on its side. And from your knowledge, from what you've covered before, do you get any indication of whether that bus actually rolled over? It might have just slid. It seems to be a very steep embankment, correct?
It does. It's hard to tell at this point, but, at a minimum, it ended up on its side. It's just how far did it slide on its side.
And we can tell you now, we see some investigators walking back and forth in the investigation area. Is there anything else you could tell us, right, Mike, that is occurring to you when you look at these investigators walking around the scene?
It's going to be a lengthy process here. Right? This is not something that they're going to be able to figure out in 24 or 36 hours, right? They're going to have to do, like I said, a thorough examination of the operating condition of the bus, conduct interviews, examine the roadway, examine where the bus came off the roadway, and it's just not something that can be done very quickly.
Okay, we understand that our chopper, Jim Smith, is back on the scene. Mike, could you stand by for a moment or two? I just want to check in with Jim Smith to see what he can tell us and what he's seeing right now. Jim.
Hey, Dick, we've been following the scene. We were talking about earlier how it did not appear there were any additional first responders approaching the bus. That is still pretty much the same scene that we've been observing as we've been following the situation. There were some first responders on the side of the road. It did appear they were starting to pack up some equipment. We want to be clear, though, it's not known yet whether everybody is off the bus, but it does appear that most of those first responders are now off on the side of the road, so it is possible, again, possible, but not clear whether everybody has been removed from the bus. Just looking at the scene again, you can see some of those ropes still going down the side of the road. That is one thing that the first responders have had to deal with, is navigating that terrain to get down to the bus. It's not clear how many feet down off the roadway, but it is an obvious embankment, and we did see some of the first responders earlier in climbing specific equipment, getting down into that area. Dick, back to you.
Bye for a moment. And Mike, Mike Hopi, if you're still with us, I'd like to ask you a question. Mike, are you still on the line?
I am.
Okay, let me just ask you, you saw those ropes leading down to that bus. Do you have an idea of just how much training? We see these first responders showing up, often firefighters, police officers, etc. How much training do you think they get in terms of response like this? Is that just something that goes with the territory?
Sure, they're preparing that, not just for a bus crash, but for any time that they're going to operate in a hillside area. So they're going to drop that down both to help the firefighters and emergency personnel get down there, but assist with bringing injured people up. They'll give them something to grab as they're going to go up and down that steep embankment.
Jim, I can tell you right now that, and Mike, if you both stand by for a moment, we're getting some information in just now. Farmingdale High School's Van Camp band was apparently on this bus. It was heading to Van Camp, Pennsylvania, I should say. And we have no word right now on injuries, but we do have confirmation of one death. Our Tony Aiello, who's on the scene and will be joining us soon, he confirms that there is at least one death in this case. Jim Smith, what kind of in terms of I just want to give everybody an overall view where this happened. Tell us what the roadways look around there.
Yeah, this happened just a few miles west of exit 15 in Middletown, exit 15 off of Interstate 84. We'll give you a wide perspective of the area. Of course, earlier we were looking at the conditions of the roadway. It does appear to be a fairly straight area leading into the section of roadway where the accident took place. But again, early in the investigation stage, we don't know whether there were any other vehicles involved in the accident. There you can see one of those medevac helicopters now, the second one that we saw on scene leaving the area. Just getting back to the accident scene itself, or at least the road situation, Interstate 84 closed in both directions now through this area. This is a large stretch of Interstate 84 where there's a large gap between exits. You have exit 15 in Middletown, and then it is about 10 miles to get to exit 4 with no other exits in between. So there's a large stretch of highway that has been shut down to travelers getting through the area. Dick, back to you.
Yeah, Jim, and some more information coming in. This is apparently a bunch of students. We're going to a band camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania. They're students from Farmingdale High School. There were 300 students, we're told, on 6 different buses. One crashed. There's been 1 death. And Mike Copey, when you hear something like this, I gather, if Jim maybe could perhaps pull out, the other buses might have been going all together. Does that help you all in the investigation, Mike?
Well, if they were traveling in tandem, it would just give you an early indication of speed and how fast they were going. You know, if there was no collision between the other buses, no, it's not going to give you too much information.
Yeah, and the other thing is, though, we would have young people on this bus, which would indicate perhaps, Mike, that it may have been an easier evacuation, correct?
It's really going to depend on the severity of the injuries, how easy the evacuation was. But the fire department is trained to deal with a rolled over bus, and, they have the equipment to make cuts if necessary to open up addition portals to get people out.
And I would imagine, Mike, that right now investigators, first responders are perhaps finding a place where people can gather, perhaps family members who could get more information in this, correct? That's usually the way things go?
Yeah, they'll have to make notifications to family members, and certainly they'll probably gather at the hospital and to begin to collect information there from the survivors of the crash and, any family members who may be coming up.
And it would appear to me, if you had 6 buses, 300 kids on board, you could have as many, I guess, Mike, as 50 people on these buses each, if not more, correct?
Yeah, it would appear that bus is probably in the 45 to 50 person range. I don't know if that's a 49 person bus or not. I think it depends on the configuration on the inside.
And Jim Smith, who's in Chopper 2. Jim, we see more first responders going down to the bus. Are we still seeing first responders out in the woods, perhaps looking if someone may have been ejected or further information in the woods?
Yeah, Dick, that's right. That is always something that in situations like this that first responders will have to unfortunately look for, is whether anybody was ejected and where they may have wound up in proximity to the bus itself. We did see another one of those personnel now making their way down to the bus, and it will give you an idea of the situation up on the road. Again, we have not seen anybody new treated for injuries in the last few minutes. Some of the equipment, emergency personnel equipment on the scene has left. It doesn't mean they're completely breaking down from the scene, but some of the fire trucks and ambulances now beginning to leave the scene.
Yeah, and those ambulances likely do not have anybody on board because they're moving rather slowly. We can tell you we're getting a little more information about this case. Apparently there were 6 buses traveling to Greeley, Pennsylvania. It was Farmingdale High School students were going to band camp, and some 300 students were on 6 different buses. One of them crashed. We have a confirmation of 1 death. And we can tell you the idea of this band camp was to go there today, Thursday, and from the information we're being given right now, that it was going to return on Sunday. Mike Copey, how quickly can investigators get...
Chopper, switch it back over.
Okay, thank you. Mike Copey, how quickly can investigators get information once they know who was on the bus, where the bus was going, and then perhaps the driver of the bus?
So as quickly as they can get to interview people. Now, certainly the most important thing is that, the victims are going to be treated at the hospital, and that's the most important thing. Once they're treated and they're able to speak, the investigators are going to want to talk to everybody who can provide information and start to piece that together, including, how fast was the bus traveling? Was there another collision, however slight, that may have caused this to continue like that? Or was there debris in the roadway that caused the bus driver to swerve? But the first thing is just getting everybody treated first, and then the investigators will start to collect that information.
Mike, you are, I understand, a retired New York State Police major, and you talked about handling that 2000 accident on I-95. And that was a terrible accident that killed 15 people. Can you tell us more about that and what perhaps, if you know, has changed between what was really 12 years ago? Do you recall that there were any changes made on the way these buses travel?
That I can't tell you, but, it just creates a heightened sense of awareness as to who's operating the vehicle and need to operate it safely. And so, the operator's condition of the bus, immediately prior to the accident is certainly going to come into play here. And they'll want to determine, did he have the appropriate amount of sleep? How many runs had he been making? That'll all happen during the course of the investigation.
Yeah, Mike, and I guess based on what we're looking at, are you able to see this bus right now?
I am. I do have a few pictures up here.
It definitely feels like that the emergency responders don't have that same urgency mode, so I think it would probably be fair to say that anyone who was on that bus who can be treated has probably been taken off that bus, correct?
Yeah, that's what it appears at this point, but I don't want to say they don't have a sense of urgency because now, as I said, they're going to shift here, and the urgency is going to be to get to the bottom of this and start to collect the information and facts that they need so they can start to come to an initial conclusion about what transpired.
And when you have these big buses traveling, and I think if I can see right there, this is not a wide highway when you're thinking of like an LIE, et cetera, like that. You as a person who's involved in the management, we just pull out here and just say it's 2 lanes with 2 shoulders on either side. Usually when you're driving on these highways, if you're driving slower, you might be driving in the right lane. If you're driving faster, you might be driving in the left lane. But we just don't know what caused that bus to go off the roadway. What we can tell you, though, and we've been saying this over and over again, is that steep incline right over where the roadway is really perhaps contributed to the accident and the injuries here. And one other thing, Mike, I can also see that there is not really what appears to be big, strong guardrails on the side. Is that something that we don't see perhaps on these interstates?
I can't tell there. It appears that there is guide wire along the side there. You don't know, how that held the bus up, if at all, or if it hit that wire prior to going over. But what happens is when the bus gets moving there and it starts going down, it changes the center of gravity, which allows the bus or creates the bus to go in a different direction. That may have been what caused it to turn over. Yeah,
it looks like that wire was nothing for that bus. I can see that the wire is completely gone in that particular location. And we are talking about what looks like a school trip. Farmingdale High School, the students were going to a band camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania. There were 300 students on 6 buses. One of the buses crashed. We have 1 confirmed fatality. And if Jim Smith is able to pull out just a little more, I noticed that on the left side there, it appears to be what could be other buses connected to this. Now, Mike, when you were talking before, you said that you can sometimes, when these buses are driving in tandem in a group, you can get a sense of perhaps their rate of speed. Why is that?
Well, they're probably staying together because they left at the same time, and assuming that they stayed together all the way through the trip, you'll know from the bus in front of the bus behind how fast they were going just on an interview with the driver.
Until you can talk to the driver, and hopefully the driver is recovering right now. One more time, we do not have word on injuries except for the 1 fatality. We only have word that there is 1 fatality, and that it's likely with 300 students on 6 buses that there would have been likely more than 50 students on each bus or thereabouts. And right now, Jim Smith, are you in the chopper right now? Well, I hear the chopper. I don't hear Jim Smith. But what I was going to check in with Jim Smith is about just to sort of recount what we know, which is that I-84 is closed in both directions near Middletown because of this accident, which happened approximately an hour ago. There were 1 bus crashed, 1 confirmed death. Approximately 50-plus students on each bus. There are 6 buses. They were all part of the Farmingdale High School students going to band camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania. Jim, would you imagine very quickly, excuse me, Mike, would you imagine very quickly that investigators are, okay, I'm told Jim Smith is not up there, but Mike is still with us, I believe. Mike, investigators are getting together right now, even as we speak, to find out more information about that bus?
Yeah, absolutely. And, they'll be going back to the bus company, and we'll be collecting records there from maintenance records on the bus, as well as, speaking with the other bus drivers, representatives from the company. So this would be a pretty lengthy and extensive investigation, which will take a long time to get fully completed.
When you work in a city as you do and you see accidents like this, I see there's a lot of technology that people are talking about on the road, not just on the vehicles themselves when they talk about whether or not they should be able to go faster or slower, but also locations. We're beginning to see speed cameras on highways. You're a former New York State major. Do you get the sense that technology has not quite caught up just yet, where we get to a situation where it can monitor how fast buses are going, or perhaps someone is going at a reckless state? I don't know about your town, but I've seen more and more in New York City and the surrounding towns have been putting in places where you could have speed monitors. What is the state of that? Is that state getting any more advanced?
It is, and we don't know if there's monitoring on this bus or not, that the company themselves could have been monitoring the bus and the operation of the bus remotely. But that's something that the investigators will determine and certainly, collect that evidence as they identify it. But I wouldn't say that the bus wasn't being monitored, whether it was live monitoring or post-operation monitoring. But there very well could be some monitoring the bus to determine how fast it was going.
And I don't know if we know this right now, but is it possible, much like in a plane accident or a plane crash, that there is some sort of black box on this bus that could tell you after the fact what may have happened?
There could be. I'm not familiar. You can't really tell right now. But again, that whole scene will be secured. That whole bus will be secured as evidence. And, during the course of the investigation, when they're examining the bus and conducting an inspection of the operational equipment on the bus, will determine if it had a black box type item in it.
And we're seeing more ambulances coming past the scene, but I would imagine, Mike, there must have been such a huge response to this accident that many locations would have brought different emergency responders very quickly. Is that the way it usually works? Do you have sort of all these guys get together ahead of time? You know, when accidents like these happen, perhaps a mass casualty unit, that incident that you're saying to yourselves, okay, how do we get everybody out there as quickly as possible, but not get to a point where everyone is just jammed up and causing trouble?
Yeah, sure. That you don't want to create a bottleneck, but a number of these ambulances that are now, they probably would have been staged a bit further behind the accident and called in as victims were being removed from the bus. So they have no way to turn around. So they're probably going to just bring them through and out now. But they would have been in the staging area. I'm sure that the first EMS person on the scene would have recognized that this is a bus carrying 45 to 50 people with varying states of injuries. They would have said they had a mass casualty incident, which would have triggered a response by this number of ambulances, which would have been staged further away, as I said, and then brought up as needed.
And I would imagine the local hospitals, based on what we've seen in the news, as we say, are very much ready to respond to this type of an incident. As you pointed out, perhaps more than one hospital would be ready to get this, because 50 students, I would imagine, and we're only giving, let's just say we are guesstimating on the number of students who may have been injured. We do not have reports yet on injuries, but we do have one confirmed fatality. We're told that there were 6 buses traveling together on I-84, and just west of Middletown, this one bus went off the road. We don't know what could have caused the accident. We believe it probably isn't weather-related, but Mike, you said a moment ago, don't be so sure about that, right?
You just never know, that the water could have been dropped on the roadway. There could have been construction. There could have been construction debris left over. That's what the investigation is going to determine. So, again, they're starting to collect that evidence now, and it's going to take a bit of time to determine exactly what happened.
If you're like a manager in your town, as you are, what are you telling the people who are working for you right now? What's the most important thing that they need to know?
In terms of managing that like this, it's basically all hands on deck. Everybody's going to have a role. Certainly, you're going to want to secure the scene. It looks like it's a lengthy, large scene. It's going to have to be secured for a number of hours. It's going to require resources there. We're going to require resources to get that bus removed from the location. Where are they going to take the bus? There'll be a lot of personal property that's going to have to be documented and secured. So this is going to be a pretty involved investigation.
I can tell you right now, if the chopper can hear us right now, if you can pull back a little, because it was something we just noticed. I noticed we don't have contact with the chopper, but a moment ago I saw an ambulance which was pulling up and seemingly parking next to the scene For what reason, we're not entirely sure, perhaps because there is someone. You pointed out, Mike, and very, very wisely, I would say, that even though people are not still being removed from that bus right now in what may be almost an hour since this accident happened, it's still possible that someone could be trapped or caught in the debris on that bus, correct?
It could be. It's going to have to take a period of time, so you're going to want to lift the bus up and see what, if anything, is under the bus. Remember, they would have had a log of everybody's on the bus, so at this point, they'll have a counting of who's been transported, who was able to walk off, and so they'll know the number of people there. They may also be keeping an ambulance there because it's a dangerous situation. The officers are going to be working in and around that bus. You keep an ambulance there in the event that somebody gets hurt, they can be transported quickly.
Just to recap one more time, there has been a charter bus crash. One person is dead. It's likely there have been multiple injuries on that bus. It was heading on I-84, and it happened on, as you can see, good weather conditions, and this happened just west of Middletown. We can tell you traffic has stopped in both directions. These roads are closed and likely are going to be closed for quite some time. So that means we can't see it right now from the chopper. We can certainly tell that there are going to be major delays in all different directions. This is in Orange County, New York. And joining me now is Mike Capo. And Mike, just give me your full title, if you would, right now.
Currently, I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety.
Commissioner of Public Safety in Rye, correct?
Yes.
And one more thing, you had been a major in the police department, so I'm sure you've seen your share of accidents like this. And I'm sure when you see something like this, you have to say to yourself that people can never be more careful. We do not know what caused this accident. We don't know whether it was a high rate of speed. We don't know whether this bus driver was cut off. But I would imagine, in your estimation, that when people are traveling a little slower, these things tend less to happen, correct?
Certainly, you know, you want to obey the speed limit at all times, and a slower speed is a safer speed.
And we can tell you right now, I told you there was an ambulance, and we just saw it from a moment ago, that had just pulled up on the scene. No ambulances have left this scene within the last, at least seems to be a half hour or so. The likelihood is that all the injuries have been taken to local hospitals where they're being treated, most likely in a triage situation. Mike, what types of injuries do you get on a bus crash? I mean, certainly there might be broken bones, there might be possibility of glass flying inside that bus. It must have been quite a terrifying scene for the kids on that bus.
Certainly it was, but it's hard really to determine, you know, what injuries happened here, as it would be in any accident, because each accident is its own unique event.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, so often when we're doing these emergency responses, you're responding to the last incident because we don't know what happened right here. And then one other advantage, or at least fortunate aspect of this crash, is that it appears at least that there is no other vehicle involved, because unless there was somebody pinned under that bus, which is very unlikely, it would seem that this bus went off on its own, which would raise even further questions. What caused it to happen? Was there something in the road? Was there perhaps some construction? We can see right now there are still ladders from where likely many of these students were pulled off. And we're saying students because we're told that this was a series of buses. 6 buses were heading to Greeley, Pennsylvania. And we can tell you that there was 6 buses with some 300 students on board. One of the buses crashed, and we're getting a much closer view now of the bus and the front of the bus. And Mike, from when you're looking at right now, does that change anything when you see the front of that bus, the way the front part looks like it's almost torn off?
It almost appears as if it was cut off by the firemen with the jaws of life or a hose tool to gain access to the bus. But it's probably too early to say whether there was another vehicle involved in this, and that's something that's going to be determined during the course of the investigation. But the front of that bus appears that it had been cut off, at least partially, through the use of tools.
We can tell right now we're getting a little more information. We're told that at least 5 people were badly hurt in this incident. This wreck happened on I-84 in the town of Wayanda, about 45 miles northwest of New York City. We can tell you that the bus, it's been lying on its side in the trees and shrubs. It's just, as you can see, several yards off the road. And we can tell you also that there were about 45 people on this bus, mostly young people, saying children, but I would say it was high school, that would be young people. And we can tell you that at least 5 people were badly hurt. We have a confirmation of 1 fatality. I know these numbers, Mike, famously we always say whatever information you're getting now is going to change drastically in the next 20 minutes. But if indeed, it would almost be hard to believe that only 5 people were badly hurt on this bus, correct?
It would be fortunate if that's the case. You know, clearly you can see the bus here has traveled a period of time down the side of that road and comes over on its side. So, you know, it would be hopeful if that's the case.
And hopeful that indeed that if there is 1 fatality, and no fatality is good, we're certainly, our heart goes out to that family, but 1 fatality and 5 injured so far are the numbers. But as I said, the numbers are very likely to change. If indeed, Mike, all of the students that were on this bus and the bus driver have been taken off the bus right now, what can you tell me about what people are doing around the scene right now?
You know, again, securing the bus, the first thing, you make sure the bus is stable so as they conduct the investigation. You don't want that bus moving and falling on top of anybody else. Then after that, really, it's going to be a painstaking process to determine exactly where did the bus leave off the road, and then collect as much and document as much evidence as you can up to the point where it comes to arrest there.
Once again, let's just recap what's happened here. A bus crashed on I-84 just west of Middletown today, went down an embankment, killing 1 person, hurting multiple other people. We're told right now 5 of them badly hurt. State police say the wreck happened on I-84 in the town of Waiwayanda. That's about 45 miles northwest of New York City. The Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse says there were about 45 people on the bus, mostly children, he says, and at least 5 people were badly hurt. And this happened at around 1:20 in the afternoon. I would imagine, and I know, Mike, you're not 100% familiar, you're a little familiar with the roads out there, but this probably wouldn't have been a scene where there would be too much traffic. But is there always that danger when you have a 2-lane highway that things happen much more quickly on a 2-lane highway?
Not necessarily. It can happen on any highway, and a lot of things are going to go into an accident like this. And it's really going to determine how fast they were going and what happened immediately prior to this bus going off the side of the road.
Yeah, immediately prior, because that's generally what would have happened, or unless there's something on that bus that could have been wrong, whether there was a faulty brake, faulty gear, something like that. And once again, as you pointed out, it's very likely that all 6 of these buses were driving together, if only because that's what you do when kids are going to a camp in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, sure. They're going to leave at the same time, and they're expected to arrive on the same time because the support would be there. So they're probably traveling in some sort of tandem or in close enough proximity. And
also, one other thing we don't know for sure is we assume that if there is any gear, if this is a marching band, they would have gear and lots of it. It would probably be under the bus, not on the bus. And we spoke a little earlier, Mike, about the idea of safety belts, and it would seem to me, just logically, when you look at a situation like this, there should be safety belts on all buses, whether it's school buses. I would imagine that's a state issue, but it would always seem to me, and you were a first responder yourself, you must have always said to yourself, wow, if there were only laws that everybody had to wear safety belts, that there would be far fewer injuries, correct?
Of course, certainly the use of safety restraint devices in any moving vehicle certainly reduces the severity and type of injury. So, you know, if in fact anybody was using them, certainly that would have prevented more serious injury.
Mike Capo, if you could stand by. Joining us now on the phone is CBS 2's Tony Aiello. He's live near the scene. Tony, I would imagine it must have been very difficult to get close to the scene, correct?
Dick, I'm still working to get close to the scene. I came up over Bear Mountain, and right on Bear Mountain, they have the variable message signs reading a bad accident on I-84, avoid exit 15, find an alternate route. So that's what I did. I came out on Highway 17, and now I'm on 17M. I'm approaching New Hampton, trying to get closer to Interstate 84. I have been able to gather some information from sources. We've confirmed that there was one fatality in this accident. There are multiple injuries, Dick, and the injured are being taken to Garnett Medical Center, which is here in Orange County, and others are being medevaced or taken as needed to Westchester Medical Center in central Westchester County, about 45 minutes south of here, which obviously is widely known as the best trauma center, really the only level 3 trauma center between New York City and Albany. So this is a mass casualty incident, and they're using a lot of resources to take care of the injured.
Tony, just give me an idea. We've been talking a lot about the scene itself here. You're talking about how difficult it is to get to the scene. Describe for people what the traffic is like in the surrounding areas.
So again, I'm on Route 6/17M, and I'm not sure what traffic would normally be like around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That is school let-out time, and you usually do see a pickup traffic in most of the northern suburbs around 3 o'clock. But there's heavy traffic on Route 6/17M, which is a side road, but a significant road, trying to approach I-84. It looks like I'm about a quarter of a mile from I-84. And I'll be able to let you know a little bit more what I see once I get closer there. Dick, you were talking about the conditions on that road, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and this now is an hour and a half in the rearview mirror. Sun glare is sometimes an issue on I-84, but it wouldn't have been an issue that early in the afternoon. If you're heading westbound on Interstate 84 as the sun is setting, obviously sometimes that's going to be a factor. But from what I saw watching the coverage on CBSNewsNewYork.com, as I could, it's a straight stretch of road. It's perfect driving conditions today. I mean, we cover a lot of accidents on I-84, but they're usually in the middle of bad weather when trucks go sliding off that road. That's obviously not a situation today.
Yeah, Tony, I was talking to Mike Capo, as emergency manager from Rye, and we were making just that point about the weather itself. Though it does appear to be very nice. A couple of points about these roads, and probably nobody knows these roads better than you do, Tony. This is only a 2-lane highway, not a 3-lane highway. And also, on very close examination of this highway at this point of I-84, they don't have those big metal barriers that we often see on roads in New York and New Jersey. They have this barrier, which is essentially a wire being strung along, and from when we got up close a few moments ago, you could see that bus crashed through that wire, and then it went over a rather steep embankment. And we were just talking that it's somewhat surprising that there wouldn't be a greater grade on the side of the road.
Yeah, it's not clear to me. I mean, the state legislators from this part of New York are very concerned about road safety issues. I don't know if they've advocated for better barriers on that road in the past, but I also know that state highway engineers would be looking at that. Okay, I've just entered New Hampton in the town of Wayawanda, so the traffic is cleared a little bit, and I should be up closer to I-84 here in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, the road safety is a major concern for the state legislators and the local legislators, for that matter.
Yeah,
and it's hard to know what they would have advocated for in the past.
And as you well know, Tony, and Mike Capo knows very well, that Westchester County has 5 north-south highways and then a series of crisscrossing east-west highways. And at this point, this is what I-84 is doing, crossing east-west. Mike, if you're still with us, I'd just like to throw the point that Tony just made. Are you always, I would imagine, in the thick of things, worried and concerned about the way the roadways are mapped out and perhaps things like guardrails on the side? Mike Capo, if you're still with us right now.
Yeah, I'm here. The thing is, some of these designs date back, 50, 60, 70 years. And so the road is as it is. And you want to make sure that the appropriate protective devices are on the side of the road. And this is something that will be determined, during the course of this investigation. I'm sure the troopers will be working with the State Department of Transportation to take a look at that and ensure, were there any problems with the road or with the safety devices that were there along the side of the road.
Yeah, safety devices. It wouldn't be a whole lot to stop that bus. Even I would imagine, Tony, you wouldn't necessarily get the sense that even a smaller barrier would have stopped that bus going off that embankment. Correct, Tony?
Yeah, and I'm not a traffic highway engineer. Mike Copey may have more to say about this. I'm not even sure that they would want a really firm barrier there, like the kind of Jersey barrier that you sometimes see. I'm not sure what exactly the protocol, the standards, the best practices would call for in terms of what's there. If Mike is still on the phone, Mike Copey, you have handled many mass casualty incidents. the bus drivers almost always give a blood sample because, I mean, that's just one of the many things that they look at if the bus driver is in a condition to do so, as they try to determine whether there was any influence from any kind of drug or alcohol. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, in my experience, they almost always check for these things.
Sure, and that'll be a standard that'll get addressed. You know, the investigators at the hospital will attempt to secure a sample from him voluntarily. If not, I'm sure that they'll be in contact with the Orange County District Attorney, who will draft an order directing him to submit that, you know, per court order. Just to go back to one other thing with the guide rails, you know, sometimes the guide rails are just designed to keep the bus going in the same direction or vehicle and to prevent it from going over. It's not necessarily to stop the item, it's just to keep it going and preventing it from ending where it did.
On the phone is Mike Capo, who's the Ride Safety Commissioner, and Tony Aiello, and I'm just going to recap right now what we know. This charter bus that you're looking at crashed on I-84 and went down an embankment, killing one person. Many people are hurt. It's not clear the exact number. State police say it happened in the town of Wawayanda, about 45 miles. This is 45 miles northwest of New York City, and the bus, as you can see, has been laying on its side. Tony, one thing, and I don't know if when you're talking to sources, is there any talk about, I know we haven't heard the number of injuries specifically, we know of at least one fatality. There's always a concern in these cases that someone may have been ejected, and we're looking at first responders walking in the woods right now at some distance, maybe a couple of 100 yards from the bus. There's always a concern that somebody could be missing too, right, Tony?
Oh, that's absolutely a concern. They would want to have hopefully some kind of manifest telling them who was on the bus. You know, and if this is, as we've heard and reported, a school group traveling to Greeley, Pennsylvania from Oyster Bay, Farmingdale, Long Island, you would think they would know who exactly is on the bus, do a head count, and the chaperones would try to, you know, step up and be of help if there was an incomplete head count as they tried to determine, you know, and you can only imagine how chaotic this was in the immediate aftermath of this situation with multiple injuries, trying to figure out, you know, how to get everyone off the bus, trying to do a head count even under those situations and triage everyone. I mean, your mind just it just boggles the mind to think about how difficult that must have been. The thing about Orange County, it's very interesting. There's a lot of volunteer firefighters here. Most of the firefighters in Orange County are volunteers, but they're the best in the business because there are so many members of the FDNY who live in Orange County, and many of them are volunteers for their local volunteer fire company. So, yes, you have volunteers going to the scene, but many of them are paid firefighters in New York City. Obviously, the FDNY, the absolute best in the business. Yeah,
absolutely great point there, Tony. And one other point that you make when you talk about the absolute chaotic scene that must have been happening about an hour ago. This incident happened at about 1:20, 1:30. I know you've been in touch with hospitals and you've talked to them. They do plan for these mass casualty incidents, correct?
They train all the time. Yep, they absolutely train all the time. And, you know, for those of us who are civilians, to be kind of frazzled in a situation like that would of course be second nature. But if you're a trained first responder, if you're a nurse, if you're a medical professional, I've interviewed many of them, as you have, Dick, over the years. Their training kicks in, they calm down, they know what to do, they know how to put people at ease. You know, the first responders, the firefighters, many of them will have children of their own. They will know what to say to any of the kids taken off the bus, any of the adults taken off the bus. I mean, it's second nature to them because they train for it so long. Various extrications they're expert on. They train all the time. There's excellent training centers here in Orange County available to the firefighters because, again, on I-84, you do have accidents like this from time to time. They know what to do. The training kicks in. They're very good at what they do. Excellent point, Tony. And I want to ask Mike Capo, because, Mike, you're one of those first responders. You were a New York police major. You've been to many of these scenes. How difficult it is when you're dealing with people who are perhaps panicking when they're in these moments, because these moments can be terrifying.
They are, but the troopers on the scene are trained also, and they're going to set the tone and try to calm people while also treating the most seriously injured. But I just want to go back to what Tony said about the hospitals and the training. It's not just there. Tony said earlier, that they took some people to Westchester Medical Center. But an event like this, the first troopers, the first emergency EMTs on the scene are going to put a broadcast out that we may have 50 seriously injured. So all of the hospitals in the region are going to prepare to take some of the overflow because, even the medical center can only take so many serious patients. And they would have all been put on notice. And so we don't know exactly where everybody is transferred to, but I would imagine, all of the hospitals within 40 or 50 miles were on standby to start to take some of these patients.
And Mike, you're very familiar with these incidents where the various fire, police, EMTs all have to coordinate. How do you guarantee that you don't get a situation like this one where everyone is responding at the same time and then getting in each other's way?
No, they're professionals. That's 20, 25 years ago, and certainly there are pockets of it. But as Tony said, Orange County is a hot spot of professionalism. I've worked with the fire coordinators up there, the emergency management people up there. They've been preparing for this event for many years. So, I'm sure that everything went about as smoothly as it can in a chaotic situation such as this.
Yeah, and Tony...
Hey, Dick.
Go ahead, sure.
Dick, Kopi and I have known each other for close to 20 years. And Mike, and I don't know if you have talked about this at all, you covered one of the worst, you were the incident commander for one of the worst bus wrecks in New York City history when that bus was sliced open after hitting a sign on I-95 right on the Bronx-Westchester border about 2011. Can you talk a little bit about, what it's like to go on one of these buses after an incident like this?
Sure, Tony. You get there and you plan and prepare for this for many years, but then you're there. What happens is all of the responders recognize they have a job to do, and they really stay focused and start doing their job, and everybody just does what they have to do. The fire department will work on extrication. The EMTs will work on treating people. The troopers will work on securing the scene and providing support and guidance. So, after all that training and preparedness, it really pays off on an event like this. And certainly when you have this preparedness like you did in Orange County, it helps save lives. So, you never expect you're going to do this. You plan for it, but then when you get there, you look at everybody performing as professionally as they do, and I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it makes it go as smoothly as possible.
And Tony, we have to make it very clear, obviously, that we do not know the cause of this accident, whether there was some sort of situation on the road, whether the bus was traveling too quickly. But every once in a while, Tony, I know you've been talking to your sources for what is almost 2 hours right now. Is there any early indications as to a possible cause? Because it certainly doesn't look like the weather was an issue.
Not that I'm picking up at all, Dick. And I have to imagine that, the immediate focus right now is securing the scene, gathering the evidence, obviously taking care of the injured. Mike, I would imagine the investigation starts very quickly and covers some of the obvious things. They'll have to look, was there some kind of mechanical issue? Was there driver distraction? Did someone pull in front and this bus was doing an evasive maneuver? There's so many things that they could look at. And I guess it's not inconceivable. It's possible that even the NTSB might get involved here at some point.
Yes, and I just don't know what the threshold it is for them to be involved. But, you may have a number of factors that contribute to the accident, some of which may be visible initially and some of which may take some time. The bus could have had a mechanical issue, will not have been visible to witnesses, and they see the bus go out of control. So, they may begin to develop some preliminary factors, but it's going to take a period of time to really have a final conclusion as to what transpired.
And Tony, we've covered many of these bus accidents, and we've spoken in the past about trying to determine how fast the bus was going, perhaps the condition of the driver. And I'm just wondering, from your reporting in the past 10 years or so, have you seen any change in sort of the level of monitoring that is on these buses and on these drivers? We even talked about, and I know we did 10 years ago in that other bus accident 12 years ago, the possibility of putting black boxes on buses. That can be expensive, but we know technology is advancing very quickly. Do you have any information on that?
Clearly there have been changes in the technology. There are GPS trackers on buses. The dispatchers can often tell how fast the bus is going. And some of these buses have interior cameras as well that would generate some images and some data that could be looked at. And so this is something that the accident reconstruction and the accident investigators will certainly be all over in the days ahead.
And the thought does occur to me that apparently we perhaps had about 45 kids from Farmingdale High School. They were on a bus trip that was apparently heading to Pennsylvania. It's always the possibility that one of those kids was rolling when this happened, and that might give you a better indication for better or for worse. Just to recap, we're told that about 45 people were on this charter bus, and 5 suffered serious injuries, and at least right now we have one fatality is confirmed. Tony, just have to ask you once again about the situation in your movement. Has there been any movement? And this is definitely the peripheral information that we need to know, but many people are sitting here saying, I guess I got to stay away anywhere near I-84, correct?
Dick, I think that's exactly what has happened. I just drove right over I-84 at exit 15 in the general area of exit 15. The highway is closed. You can look for some distance. If you were flying today, you would call this a VFR day. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful day where you can just see for miles and miles from elevated areas. And there was very little traffic. People weren't, there's very strong awareness up here of what has happened and to avoid I-84. I don't know where people might be being taken off the highway and rerouted, but it's obviously going to be inconvenient for any number of people, but it's also a major mass casualty incident, and people tend to understand that their inconvenience is temporary. There were lives changed here today, Dick.
Yeah, and absolutely. You can only imagine the other thing is parents who may be watching this now, who are looking at this bus and thinking that perhaps their child is on board. And that puts a new sense of urgency just to, it once again says to you how important it is what these first responders do. Mike and Tony both pointed out that so many people who live in this area, Tony, you know it very well, Mike, you know it very well, they may be a firefighter in New York, but on their off time, they're working as a volunteer. They may be in a car when they see this and they jump out. And so once again, I think it's important to note what a great job these first responders do in an incident where so many people are relying on them. Tony, one other thing we always try to check the tea leaves of a situation. I've seen very few vehicles coming in and out, emergency vehicles, from this bus situation. That generally means that the scene itself may be secure. Are you getting any information about that?
I'm not, but you're right. If the signs of kind of frantic activity have died down or slowed down, that certainly would be an indication that they've got their arms around the injured, they're being properly treated, and now it's more of a figuring out how to secure the scene, how to take the evidence that they need, and how eventually to clean this up.
Yeah, and we should point out right now we are looking at video. This is not a live picture. So this was a while ago, and the scene is still pretty much people moving slowly, but also looking in the woods to perhaps to see if they can find anything out there. And Mike, once again, we've been talking about this all afternoon, those heavy ropes that are going down to the bus. This must have posed quite a challenge for first responders when they first got there to get to that bus, correct, because of that steep embankment?
Sure, it's going to be tough to get down, but it'll be even more difficult to bring seriously injured people up. And so, the ropes have been used as a guide and also to pull stretchers up from the scene.
Yeah, and that scene, as we said, it appears that everyone is off that bus. Tony, the other things we were talking about before is just the way these buses are constructed is there's been an attempt not to have glass being shattered and things flying all over the place. I would imagine when you look at this bus now, all those windows are out on the one side, probably because people were evacuated, not necessarily because that glass shattered, correct?
I would believe so. I mean, many of those windows, they have kind of a rubber seal around them because that's how you escape in a rollover. And sometimes they even have stickers right on the window telling you what to do in the case of a rollover accident. So perhaps, some competent adults or young people on the bus were able to take it upon themselves to kind of kick out the windows or remove the windows. And then obviously, as you pointed out, we saw the ladders there as well, which would have been used to help people get out of the bus.
Mike and Tony, stand by. Jennifer McLogan is live at Farmingdale High School, the school where these students apparently left today. Jennifer, what can you tell us at the school?
We're outside the Farmingdale Senior High School. There are 1,700 students who go to this school. 300 of them were going to band camp. This is a tradition where 6 buses take off and they go for a few days. They were outside Greeley when one of the buses went off the encampment. I'm seeing a group of freshmen over here that I'd like to go speak to now. They said that those injured, they're being told, were freshmen heading off to band camp. And young man, could I speak to you for a minute here, please? Can you come forward? Right over here. Can you tell us what you know, what you've heard from your friends on the bus?
I heard that, like, my friends on the bus, I heard they could, like, somebody flew off the bus, and, like, I heard the bus driver died, and one of my friends, his name is, like, David, I heard they can't find him yet. And one of my other friends, he played basketball and football with me. Like, they said his, like, knee is off, and, like, his arm, like, his bone on his arm came off. And I heard like a lot of my friends, like, they're all critically injured. Like, one of my friends, her face, she sent us a picture. Her face is all bloody, and, like, she bit off, like, a lot of piece of her tongue. Yeah, that's all I really heard right now.
But you heard from students on the bus.
Yeah, students on the bus.
And your heart must be broken.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too good right now. Like, I usually take a bus. I don't even think I want to take a bus no more. Yeah, that's why I'm always, like, cautious about, like, going to trips, like, for the school on the bus. Like, now, like, I don't know if I want to, like, take trips no more.
And what are your emotions at this moment?
Like, at this moment, my emotions, like, I just feel sad. Like, I just want to pray. I want to know how my friends' families are feeling. Yeah, and I'm, like, all shaky and stuff because, like, a lot of my friends are on that bus. I'm close with a lot of people on the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, the police have cordoned off the front of the school. Some of the administrators are on their way now to the site. And we're just trying to chat with a couple of more students here. Excuse me, can I speak to both of you for a moment? Can you come over? We're at CBS Channel 2. Can you tell us, sir, what your emotions are, what you're learning, what you're...
It's simply devastating. I mean, it's, like, bad. Like, I never thought this could happen. Like, it was shocking to me when I heard that it was true, and when I saw the images, it's bad. You know, these are our friends, you know? Like, it's horrible.
What grade are you in?
I'm freshman. I'm in 9th.
So you're understanding that some of the people injured were the 9th graders?
Yes, they were. I believe the whole bus was freshmen, 9th graders.
And you showed me, or someone here showed me, some photos and videos that you had from the scene.
Yeah, it was kind of disrupting videos because the way, like, how, like, people have, like, they bit off their tongues. And
okay. But in terms of you showing me the bus, it went down the embankment, and your thoughts about those who are injured?
I feel bad for them. Hope they feel better really fast, because I never thought this was gonna happen. Like, I thought everybody was gonna be, like, fine. I thought it was just, like, a little, like, the tire came off, they were fine on the side of the road. I didn't know that they crashed and they did flips and stuff.
Okay, that's it for the time being here at Farmingdale High School. Some of the administrators have spoken to us off camera. They're doing all they can to assuage fears, and we have spoken to some of the parents, and we'll bring that to you later. Dick, back to you.
Jennifer, you say you've spoken to some of the parents. Are you getting a sense that the parents are gathering at the school, or is there another place they're going to?
Parents at the school whose children were not on the bus came over rushing here just to hear more information, which should be subsequently coming from the administrators.
And yes, and I would imagine that the parents would be heading to the various hospitals in Orange County. Jennifer McLogan at Farmingdale High School.
That's correct.
Yes, Jennifer, thank you so much. And still on the phone with me is Tony Aiello and Mike Capo, emergency manager from Rye. Tony, based on what you just heard, freshmen on the bus, and I should emphasize, we heard a lot of information from some of those students, which is absolutely not confirmed. We don't know any of that, whether it's true or not. But based on what you've heard, you had a lot of 9th graders on this bus. These are younger students, not older students. How do you react to that information? Tony Aiello apparently not hearing us right now. Mike Capo, perhaps you are still there. Based on what you just heard from Jennifer McLogan, how do you react to that information?
I did not catch what Jennifer said, just the tail end about parents in Farmingdale.
Yeah, well, essentially there were many ninth graders on the bus, so these kids are 13, 14 years old, probably messing around as kids do on a bus, and that might sort of change the dynamic as to what may have occurred when that bus toppled over. But I would imagine, Mike, that these parents are probably all headed to the hospitals in Orange County, correct?
Sure. You know, the notifications would go out either through the state police or the school district as to where the child is, and you know, at that point they would interface with the police officers and troopers at the hospital when they get there.
Yeah, we're told that there were 6 buses heading from Farmingdale, and they were heading to Pennsylvania, Greeley, Pennsylvania, and they were heading to a band camp there. They were leaving on Thursday. They were leaving today on Thursday, and they're heading for a full weekend of band camp that was going to conclude on Sunday, and then presumably they all would have come back. We guesstimate that all 6 buses were probably traveling together. I can see right now in this video that we're getting from Chopper 2 that there are at least 2 major buses. Perhaps they were part of that so-called caravan before the one tipped over. We're told, at least for now, there was 1 confirmed fatality. There is apparently 45 people were on board. We're told at least at one point that 5 people were badly hurt, but there are certainly many more injuries with 45 kids on the bus. And right now we're seeing, at least in this video that was taken a little while ago, we're seeing first responders heading down to that bus. And Mike, once again, when you see the front of that bus, it would seem like that was a major impact. We don't know the condition of the driver. We don't know what happened with him. A student made a comment that was unconfirmed. We don't know what happened to the driver of that bus, but that would be a very serious injury, we would expect, right, Mike?
Hey, again, it's hard to tell, you know, was the operator's seat belted in. You know, I said earlier, you know, that bus appears to have had that roof sheared off. Now, whether it was sheared off as a result of the collision or by the first responders to help remove the victims from the bus, you know, that's really can't tell right now, but I'm sure that part of that played into it where they had to shear the top of that off with tools.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, Tony Aiello, are you still with us, Tony? Okay, Tony's not with us right now. Let's just recap, if we could. This bus left Farmingdale, we're told, sometime around noon or before noon, and this crash happened at about 1:20. That would be about the approximate timing from Long Island. Might have left a little earlier, might have left a little later. There were 6 buses riding in a caravan. This was all part of the Farmingdale High School band, which was heading to Greeley, Pennsylvania. And apparently something went wrong on the road. We don't know whether this was speed. We don't know whether there was something in the road, but it caused one of the buses to veer off. It's quite possible that this bus that crashed was the lead bus because there was nobody in front. It looks like there were no bus had stopped at a distance in front. And right now, Mike, once again, we're looking at video of investigators, and they're looking in the woods. What would they be doing in the woods right there?
They're going to want to recover any evidence, anything that came from the bus, and identify that location, which will, you know, assist with determining when did the bus roll over, where did it come off the roadway, you know, potentially how far was the item thrown, if it assisted a speed projection. So before they leave that scene, they're going to want to identify and document and secure every item that came from that bus.
Okay, Mike Capo, just stand by. Joining us now on the phone is the mayor of Middletown, New York, Joseph DeStefano. Mayor DeStefano, what do we know right now? What can you tell us that we haven't heard?
Well, I've been listening to you right now. The biggest part for the city of Middletown's role in this is as a support service for on the scene with the state police. You know, it's the reunification center has been set up inside the city at SUNY Orange College, and so Middletown Police will be coordinating there. But it's the same information. You have 6 buses. 1 went off the road from Farmingdale. All the same thing. I hear all the kids on the 1 bus that was in the accident have been transported or in the process of being transported to the hospital. I believe all have been The reports that I have, one dead, and 5 critical. But that could change very quickly from what I'm being told.
Right, and certainly many more numerous injuries from that bus, just based on the fact that we're looking at that rollover. In that area, and this is right near where you are, right near exit 15, I believe, near Middletown.
Just on the outskirts of the city.
Just on the outskirts of the city. Is there anything you could tell us about that roadway there, whether there have been previous problems or whether it would, when our chopper pulled out earlier, it looked like a straight shot to me where the roadway was, that there was no big bend, but I certainly am familiar with I-84 from time to time, and it does have its bends in the road. Has there ever been any trouble based on the nature of the road itself?
84, most of the trouble in 84 is it's heavy truck traffic on the road. There are several closures on the road, but I don't believe in that section that there's any winding bends. As you get closer towards Port Jervis, then you're going up into the mountain, and it's more a little winding. But in that area there, you do have a ravine between the 2 highways where the bus did go down, between the east and west side. But from the information I have where the bus went down is that it's not really a hazardous area, but there is a lot of truck traffic on that road going from Pennsylvania into New York and vice versa.
And we should point out that when you say there's truck traffic, this is only a 2-lane roadway, so sometimes that can get a little cramped, correct?
Yes, 2 lanes in each direction, yes.
2 lanes in each direction. And let me ask you, on this particular roadway, I see what you mean. Also, if you can also tell us from what you know, have there ever been any serious accidents along this strip?
Oh, yes. In the Middletown, Waukeil, way beyond the area, going all the way towards Port Jervis, too, have been several. But between the state line and Port and Newburgh, it's a pretty rugged road. And as I said, the most of it, from my understanding over the years, has been associated with truck traffic. Not saying that it had anything to do with this, but it is a busy road and with a lot of tractor trailers on it.
I would imagine it's a 65 mile an hour speed limit. Is that correct, or is it lower?
That's correct.
65 miles an hour, so many people go 10 miles over the speed limit, so that bus had to be moving along, correct?
Yeah, I don't want to draw any conclusions on the speed, but all I know is that we're saying prayers for the families and for the children, and we do have the Family Assistance Center set up here at SUNY Orange in Middletown, and Middletown Police are coordinating there, but the lead agency on this is State Police.
Tell us that again, where is this Family Assistance Center?
It's at the community college in the city of Middletown on South Street.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that family members could go to that location to get more information?
Yes, they can, and they can contact the Middletown Police Station too at 845-343-3151, and they can give them some directions.
All right, that's good information. But as far as you know right now, in terms of the response to this, I would imagine this was an all-hands-on-deck situation for all your first responders?
It is in the whole region, the whole county. There are hundreds of emergency personnel on the scene, fire departments. Middletown does have a combined paid department also, but police, fire, emergency responders all on the scene, and the area is heavily saturated with emergency responders and investigators, of course.
Aside from that one emergency response center where you're saying family members could go to, was there any others that you were aware of?
No, my understanding is that the other 5 busloads are planning to go back to Long Island this evening.
Oh, they're planning to go back. I would imagine they're on the roadway right there, right now.
Yeah, and I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I was told, and that the Family Unification Center is set up for the bus that was actually in the accident, and the families or anyone else who needs to respond to that scene, dealing with a potential person on one of the buses.
But you don't have any information as to when or where those buses might be taken off the road. I just have to ask you that question too, is where, with all this traffic that's not on I-84, where does it get diverted to?
Well, it can be diverted around the exit there and onto Route 6 and go down into Port Jervis, which it's a 2-lane road then. But I understand traffic is pretty well backed up across the county already, going westbound. I don't know about the eastbound traffic, but Route 6 would be the alternate route, or Mount Hope Road. There are a few side roads, but they are, Mount Hope Road's a country road. It's not a not a main highway, but Route 6 is a state highway, 2-lane though, not 4-lane road.
So I'd imagine that the most important message you have for people is to stay away from the area altogether.
Stay away from the scene, stay away from the area. If you have alternate ways to get home tonight from a different direction, I would stay away from the 84-6 corridor and say a prayer for the families.
Say a prayer for families is great information. I have to ask you one more thing, Mayor Joe DiStefano. Have you gotten any indication from the first responders, perhaps from your police department, as to what may have caused this?
I have not, and the Middletown police are not the lead on it.
Right, but sometimes the first responders on the scene do have information just based on what they've seen.
I would not preempt any of them. You know, there's rumors going around, but I don't think it would be appropriate for me to take a guess at that.
No, and from what you're hearing, but you can't confirm, but you had information that said that perhaps the other 5 buses may be heading back to Farmingdale tonight.
That is what I've been told, yes.
That's what you've been told.
I don't know if they have left yet, but their plan is to go back this evening. All
right, Mayor Joe DiStefano, thank you so much. Mike Capo, if you're
welcome.
Yep, thank you. Mike Capo, if you're still with us, based on what you've been hearing from the mayor's office, not a lot of new information, but some tidbits here and there. How do you respond to what he was saying? All right, we don't have Mike Capo right now. Mike, are you there? Okay. Well, we're going to try and get him back, but we can just recap what we know right now. A bus crashed on I-84 in Orange County. It happened about 1:20 this afternoon. We're told there are 45 students on board. There were approximately 45 students on board. We're told they were about with a group of 6 buses that were headed to Greeley, Pennsylvania for a band camp. A band camp was supposed to last for 4 days. And we're also told that somehow that bus veered off the road. We're looking at video from Chopper 2. From the video, you can tell that there is a steep embankment that goes from the road, 2-lane road there, down into the bottom, which certainly would have made it difficult for rescue workers to get to. We can tell you reports of 1 dead, 5 perhaps critically hurt, and many more types of injuries. Okay. Right now I'm being told that our CBS 2's Shosh Bedrosian is live at the Reunification Center in Middletown in Orange County that the mayor was just telling us about. Shosh, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so we're at this reunification center here at Orange Community College. We're sitting outside the physical education building. As you can see behind me, we're waiting for families to arrive. State police said this is going to be the site where families come. We're not sure if they will be reuniting with how many people will be coming here, probably waiting to see how their family member is doing if they were on that bus. As you can see, some staff outside. There's a state trooper out here too, maybe some local police as well. But right now this site is pretty quiet. I am anticipating more people to arrive probably within the next hour. There's more police officers that continue to pull up. I will just say it again, we are at this reunification site waiting for more people to come here, likely family members, relatives. Probably if there's 45 people on that bus, we're expecting probably dozens and dozens of people to come out just to see if their loved one is okay. But we're going to continue to monitor all of this. And right now it's pretty quiet out here, but we're going to follow all of the details. Dick.
I know when you arrive on these scenes frequently and you don't have a lot of information, but just based on what we're seeing, some people are going in and out. Do you have any information right now? Here we are, it's a little over 2 hours after, 2 hours and 20 minutes after this accident happened. I would imagine it's very tough for family members to get from Farmingdale all the way to Middletown in any short period of time, particularly during rush hour. Have you seen, did you get any sense that people have actually arrived already?
We have not. We have actually gotten a sense that some people have started to arrive. They're waiting for their family members. But Dick, like you said, this has to be a long trek from these families coming from Long Island, Farmingdale, all the way up here. It took me about an hour and a half to get up here just from the Bronx area. And so we have heard that Tony Aiello has been stuck in traffic at that crash site. The roads here in Middletown are a little bit busy as well. I got stuck in some traffic just trying to get into this reunification site. So we are anticipating more and more people to come here. It might be difficult. It might take a long time, as we are probably in the middle, starting to get to the middle of rush hour as people are leaving Manhattan and trying to head out to the suburbs, as we are all the way out here in Middletown. And by the way, we're actually about 4 miles from where this crash site actually is. So whether families will be coming here, they might be going to the site, but this right here is the spot here at Orange County Community College where families will be getting more information on their loved ones and hopefully reuniting with them as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is the most agonizing time for family members because many of them are back either on Long Island or in transit. They're heading to Middletown, to the area of Middletown, and they don't know the condition of their child. Maybe some people have been told, others haven't, and it just must be absolutely agonizing for these family members to be going through this now. Do you have any sense, I know that's a community college you said there, do you have any sense of what kind of a setup they have there? I would imagine they would have grief counselors on the scene, correct?
So we do not know if there are grief counselors here. Pretty much everyone is really starting to arrive. This is fresh, brand new. I'm assuming we will learn more. We will get more details as time goes on, as more and more families continue to arrive to this scene. But as I said, just over my shoulder, we are outside this physical education center here at Orange Community College upstate in Middletown. You can see a state trooper here. You can see some staff just waiting probably for these family members to arrive to see if their loved one on this bus is okay. There's also some local police officers here as well. It seems as if everyone is kind of just waiting for family members, relatives to arrive. We're also waiting for that as well, for these families to see if their loved one is okay. Dick, you mentioned those road conditions. We talked about rush hour, how it could add to these families getting up here with time, but also some of the routes. Tony talked about these roads are 2-lane roads on Route 17 and I-84 once you get off of I-84 and onto some of these more local roads. So there could be more backed up traffic. Like I said before, here in Middletown, there was backed up traffic just getting to this reunification center, just because people getting out of school, people getting out of work. So there is consistent traffic that we are seeing, and we're just hoping that these families can get here soon and in time just to hear how their loved ones are doing.
Shosh Bedrosian, stand by. We're going to go to Jennifer McLogan now. She is at Farmingdale High School on Long Island. And Jennifer, what can you tell us? I've seen there's a scene there of students gathering, and many of them very upset. We have 1 confirmed fatality, at least 5 serious injuries, and then many more people on the bus, no doubt, suffering other injuries. What can you tell us there at the high school?
Hi, Dick. We're on Lincoln Street in front of Farmingdale Senior High School. 1,700 students go here. 300 of them very excitedly signed up for the marching band camp. So we understand 6 buses left earlier today filled with students, parents, chaperones, and of course administrators. When one of the buses, we believe it was the lead bus, according to what some of the students are learning, went off the embankment. There are certainly heart-wrenching feelings going on here, prayers, parents coming by, asking us questions. We've spoken to several administrators who tell us that later today, the 5 buses in question that were not involved in the crash will be returning after spending time at the reunification center in Orange County, at the Orange County Community College, where there will be counselors set at the scene. Earlier when you came to us, we spoke to some 9th graders. Now we have some upperclassmen here that I wanted to just touch base with. What can you share with us about your feelings?
What I'm feeling right now is basically, I'm very shaken up, and it's like, it's really hard to put in words, but it's basically, I'm feeling like, even though I didn't know most of these kids, but like I knew these kids that went, it's just like very shocking, and I'm really hoping that all of them are fine. Like,
it hits so close to home when you see a bus leaving and suddenly who's coming back and who might be hospitalized at this time.
Yeah, it was very stressful and crazy. Like, I can't, unless she said, I can't put it into words. Like, before they left, I saw my friends before they went, and I all wished them to have fun. And it's crazy to think that this is like the freshmen's first time being able to like do something like this, and it was just...
Were there any announcements in school?
No, they did not release any information to us about anything. we just,
when
the
people
parents
started to find out, I think kids started to tell their teachers, and then teachers started informing other teachers. So they opened up the auditorium for kids who knew their friends and their family on the bus, and they let just people sit in there and have their moment. And everyone was really nice in there. I was in there with my friends, and everyone was just comforting each other.
Yeah, especially like when all classes ended, the comms that are like right there, you could just see groups of people just like hugging, crying, like they looked like distraught.
Everybody was
like
distraught.
everyone was freaking out, like especially during ninth period, everyone was like, what happened, and then we were
then the parents were being told, the school administrators sent out letters right away to assure the parents that everything was being done to keep their children safe, what was happening in Pennsylvania, and just our hearts and prayers for them. Dick, back to you.
Jennifer, we know that this is a particularly very difficult time for the parents.
I apologize if you're asking me a question. I think we've lost we lost the audio with you, so we'll come back to you. If you're asking me, we'll come back.
Okay, Jennifer.
After we get this fixed.
Yes, Jennifer McLogan, thank you very much. Just to recap for you right now, New York State Police are currently investigating a very serious crash with multiple serious injuries on I-84 in the town of Wawawanda, Orange County. This is Route 84 westbound, and it's closed at exit 15A. It's closed in both directions. There are detours in place. Right now, reports say that one confirmed fatality, at least 5 very serious injuries. And then we're told there are about 45 people were on board that bus, plus the bus driver. So you're talking about 40 other kids who were on that bus. From what we understand, these are ninth graders, 13, 14, maybe 15 years old. These are students that were part of a band, the Farmingdale High School band, which was heading to Greeley, Pennsylvania. A total of 300 of them on 6 buses, 300 on 6 buses. Our understanding is, and we only get this from the logic of the way these things usually work, is that the buses were all traveling together, and it's not clear right now what happened to this bus. There is speculation. Was it speeding? Was it something in the roadway that distracted the driver? Was there some sort of issue with distracted driving on the part of the bus driver? And one thing that has been very concerning in the past 2 or 3 hours as we've been watching the video coming from the scene is investigators being in the woods. Now, that could be a number of things. It could be that they're looking for anything from that bus that may have flown off. It could also be looking that perhaps someone had been ejected. Even at this late hour, would seem unlikely, but that's certainly a possibility. And another thing we can talk about is just how first responders responded apparently very quickly. We started first seeing these pictures about an hour after the incident happened, and just about everybody apparently were off the bus. Now, parents are being told to head to Middletown, where there's a reunification center, and that's where CBS 2's Shosh Bedrosian is right now. Shosh, is there anything new?
Yeah, Dick, so we're actually seeing this truck arrive here. Maybe they're offloading some different types of seating for people. We're waiting to see kind of how this reunification center further develops, but we are out here right now outside this physical education center here at SUNY Orange, or Orange County Community College. And so we're just kind of waiting to see more and more families arrive. You mentioned that 300 students from that high school were a part of this trip. I can only imagine the amount of parents wanting to know how their kid is, how their loved one is doing, whether it's a relative or a friend. So we are anticipating a lot of people to come to this reunification site. You mentioned that 45 people were on that bus, and multiple family members will likely show up trying to see how their child is doing during this time. So we, like I said, we are anticipating a lot of people to come here. We're also anticipating just more things happening at this site. It's a little bit quiet right now, but as you can see behind me, it seems as if they are planning for more and more people to come. We are stationed about 4 miles from where this crash site is located off I-84, right here in Middletown. So all families, if they will be coming up here from Long Island, it might be a long drive for them. It took us over an hour and a half to get here just from the Bronx, outside of Manhattan. And so, like I said before, windy roads, long drive to see for these parents how their children will be doing tonight. Dick.
We spoke before about how it can be so agonizing for parents. Sometimes the worst thing is when you just don't know. And when you look at that bus and you see what could have happened on that bus, were any of these kids wearing seat belts? They're young kids. They're 13, 14, 15 years old. Maybe some kids were moving around. We have no idea of the fear and the terror of what went on when that bus went off the road. And Shosh, I know this is peripheral to the just awful news that we have a case of 1 fatality, 5 serious injuries, and many more less serious injuries on this bus of the 45 kids. But just if you will, I think we need to hammer home to people just how it is a very bad idea to go out and be driving in the area around Middletown. And if you just describe once again what the roadways are like, when you see a major highway like I-84, which literally cuts across the state and carries so much traffic, including buses, I would imagine is very difficult to get around out there at this time, right, Shosh?
Yeah, absolutely difficult. And we're not close by. Long Island is not close by to Middletown, to where this bus crash site. This is a long trek for those parents. So just kind of to go off of what you said, that agony of driving up here all the way upstate, not knowing the condition of your child. Even if you're a parent who has a child on any of those other buses, the stress that they might be going under right now trying to get up here and learn the condition of their child. Like we said before, we are at this reunification site. A lot of these parents, these families will be coming up here. You don't know what their mindset is coming up here. And just driving up here myself with that long trek, trying to gather information, gather news, and trying to figure out where these families will be going and what is happening at the crash site, and all of the information we're learning, just more and more is coming out. But for these families, that's something that is significant, and all of our hearts are with these families. And I know that a lot of them are thinking about their children, if their children are okay, and hopefully we're going to bring you all of the latest when some more of them do trickle into this reunification site. As we mentioned before, there is a truck here probably offloading different types of equipment just to handle the amount of people that are coming here. We mentioned before, we did see a few parents trickle in outside of this physical education center here at SUNY Orange, or Orange Community College, and there are some security guards. There are some local police officers, state troopers, and people just waiting for this arrival here, Dick.
Shosh, and when you talk about the mental state of these parents and what they've gone through here this morning, from what Jennifer McLogan described at the high school, this is an annual event. Kids going off to band camp, 300 kids, so probably not just kids who are in the band, but 300 kids on 6 different buses. Now, one other piece of information that Jennifer McLogan told us about is that those other 5 buses are going to turn around and they're going to head back to Farmingdale. And you can only imagine what it's like being those kids on that bus, and we don't know whether or not they've left the area. I can tell you from the video we've been looking at, there are at least 2 buses still on the scene. There would be 3 more. We don't know specifically if they were all traveling together, but we do know that this one, perhaps the lead bus of the group, went off the road with 45 kids on board. And then the other thing for these parents is those kids leave this morning, Shosh, and they see their kids get on the bus, and this is just an event that they've looked forward to. The kids are all excited, and now we can only imagine what they're going through. Have you seen any other arrivals? I don't know, you've only been there in probably the last 15, 20 minutes, but I would imagine, as you said before, it would take some time before some parents got there, correct?
Correct. We mentioned this is a far trek from Long Island. This isn't close by. This isn't up in Westchester County. This is way up here in Middletown, here in Orange County. You mentioned that these kids were probably excited, and to know that one bus crashed and being on that other bus, you can't imagine what those kids are thinking as well, probably trying to get a hold of their parents, communicating what is happening to them. And so just all around, a lot of emotion. It's very, very quiet right now, very quiet here at this reunification site. So we are just waiting for more families to arrive as they make this journey up from Long Island up here to Orange County during rush hour. And a lot of them waiting to hear how their child is doing tonight, Dick.
Thanks very much. Stand by, please. And we now know that CBS 2's Tony Aiello, we've been talking to him on the phone, but he's gotten close to the scene, and now he joins us live. Tony, what can you see, if anything? You're probably at quite some distance right now from the scene, correct?
Yeah, at least 1/10 of a mile, maybe closer to a 1/4 mile, Dick. My colleague Chris Kolarko is going to zoom past me, and you can kind of see what we have off there in the distance. We're standing on Mount Orange Road, which is a 2-lane road that crosses over Interstate 84. And you can see right now traffic going west, traffic, I'm a little turned around. We're just west of the scene, so that is traffic going east now that has opened up on I-84 in the lane over there. That's eastbound traffic going towards Middletown, so that has opened up. On the other side of the median strip is westbound I-84, and that's where the accident is. And if you look off in the distance, you can see some of the flashing lights on some of the first responder vehicles. It's difficult to see because there is a tree in the way, but there is also a medevac chopper parked in the right lane of the highway there. I'm not sure why it's there, if they anticipate having to make further transports or what that situation might be, but there is a helicopter parked here at the scene as well. Again, the eastbound lanes have reopened. I've been in communication with Steve Newhouse, who is the Orange County executive. He told me that the injured are being taken to Westchester Medical Center, to Garnett Medical Center, and also to Bon Secours Hospital, which is in Port Jervis, about 11 miles away. So they drill for this. They're ready for this. They know how to handle mass casualty incidents. Don't forget, Dick, Stewart Airport is not too far from here. So there's both commercial, civil, and military traffic at Stewart Airport, and so they have to have all kinds of wonderful systems, effective systems, best practices in place in the event of mass casualty incidents. And so they train, they drill, they're ready, and today that training kicked in as they responded to the scene. Dick, a few minutes ago you talked about the buses leaving the scene. So there were buses that were carrying other students to this camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania. And we know, because we've seen on social media, that those students saw terrible things happening to their friends and their schoolmates and their bandmates out the window of the bus. They've posted some of these pictures on social media. So the kids on the buses that were not involved in the accident clearly saw some terrible things today. Those buses went west on I-84. They turned around and they went west on I-84, and then they circled around, and about 25 minutes ago I saw them heading east on I-84 towards Middletown. So whether they're going to that reunification center or whether they're taking the kids back to Farmingdale, not real clear to me right now. So we're on this overpass, and you can still see the flashing lights. They will be working well into the night, processing the scene, checking for everything that they can, picking up every piece of debris, because in addition to the immediate needs of treating the injured, you now have a very serious accident investigation that must be done thoroughly and professionally in the days and weeks ahead. Dick?
And Tony, even more important right now are the family members of these kids. Now, just a couple of things that you mentioned about those buses with the other students on board. We are told, at least Jennifer McLogan said, that they would head back to Farmingdale High School at some point. Now, but it would almost be inconceivable that this bus didn't go probably into Middletown, stop, and then give these kids a break, because we don't know how long they've been out there on that bus, if they were still on those buses for that period of time. These are the 5 other buses that were riding with the one bus that overturned. So we have to get the sense that those kids are going to get a break, at least for some point. And you're talking, Tony, that we're guesstimating the number of injuries, 45 kids or 45 people in total on that bus, going to 3 separate hospitals. They're all probably getting at least 15, 20 members of the buses and members of that band going to these hospitals. And then it had to be difficult for any hospital to respond to so quickly. And yet, Tony, you've said over and over again that these hospitals, these first responders, they are trained, they drill for this. But of course, when the real thing hits, it's not clear that everyone's prepared, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the training kicks in, and certain people perform better than others, but everyone, does what they can. Dick, I should mention, I'm not going to name his name, but he did confirm for me that he works at Garnett Medical Center. He was here on the scene. He finished his shift and he was heading home, but he stopped to talk to me here at the scene. And he works in medical care at the hospital, and he told me they were very quickly setting up. They had stretchers. All their protocols had kicked into place. They were ready. They were checking the blood bank. They were doing everything you would expect them to do in advance of receiving any number of injuries from a mass casualty incident. And Dick, looking at that bus down that embankment, I mean, it's hard to imagine that anyone came off that bus in 100% condition. You would have to think that everyone got banged up. And I know if I'm a parent and my kid's on that bus, I don't care if you tell me you feel okay. I'm telling you, you're going to the hospital. I at least want you checked out. You've got to worry about concussions. You've got to worry about internal injuries that could lead to bleeding later. I mean, I'm just speaking as a parent. If my kid was on that bus, I want them at the hospital, even if they were in a position to call me and tell me they were okay.
Absolutely, Tony, and so many of those parents are sitting here right now and saying, how is my kid? Whether they're seriously injured or not injured at all, it must be terrifying. And as Shosh Bedrosian pointed out a little earlier, not just the kids who are on the bus that crashed, but even these other kids. You're talking about 300 students between the ages of 13 and 15. And when you think about when that bus rolled over, I don't know about you, but I'm speculating that a lot of those kids perhaps did, even if there were seat belts available, were not wearing seat belts. And so there would be a lot of injuries. There'd be glass flying around, there'd be objects flying around, and then you wouldn't know whether up was down or down was up. Tony, do you get any sense that there is any more, besides the investigative units, there have been some ambulances left at the scene? I know you said you're about a 1/10 of a mile away. What are you seeing from your location? Is there any movement around the bus in terms of emergency vehicles?
Yeah, in the westbound lane, we are seeing emergency vehicles come and go, and in the eastbound lane, which appears to be open to traffic, we do see emergency vehicles going as well. So it's clearly still an active scene.
Okay, Tony Aiello, who is on the scene right now. Once again, this charter bus crash, 1 dead, 5 seriously injured, 4 others having much less injuries. We do not know the cause right now. We're going to continue our coverage right now on CBS 2 with Christine Johnson and Maurice Dubois.
This is breaking news.
If you're just joining us, we are following breaking news here this afternoon of a bus crash. This is the type of story, Maurice, that no parent wants to hear. A bus carrying band members from Farmingdale to Pennsylvania crashed off of Route I-84. Multiple students have been injured. We are hearing there is 1 fatality as well. Here is the scene off of I-84 here this afternoon, where the bus went off the embankment and rolled over into a tree surrounded area.
As you started to say there, Christine, this is a nightmare scenario for the school, the parents, the students involved. 6 charter buses left Farmingdale about noon today. They were driving to Pennsylvania to band camp, some 300 kids on 6 buses going to Greeley, Pennsylvania. They had driven about 100 miles, having left Farmingdale, when they got to the town of Wawayanda. This is off of I-84 there in Orange County, when for some unknown reason at this point, the bus went off the road down an embankment, and there you see the result. As you said, 1 person has died. 5 are said to be in serious, is it critical condition at this point? We still don't know the latest on them. But as we watch this nightmare literally playing out in front of us, investigators are on the scene, still combing the area, still combing the wreckage, which, you know, that raises some sort of a red flag almost 3 hours later, what exactly they're looking for. You also saw the traffic nightmare as well, the scenario there for travelers at this hour. Avoid I-84 is what we've been told. There's some traffic there on the ground. CBS 2's Tony Aiello has fought through that traffic, made his way about a 1/4 mile or maybe a little less from the scene. Tony, what have you got? What can you tell us at this point?
Maurice, we are just west of the crash scene. This is Mount Orange Road. My colleague Chris Calarco is going to zoom past me, and you can see in the westbound lanes the flashing lights way off in the distance there. That's at least a tenth of a mile, maybe more like a quarter of a mile. And parked closer to us, difficult to see because there's a tree there, is a helicopter as well. The helicopter in position should they need to do additional transports for whatever reason. The eastbound lanes of I-84 have reopened after a 2-hour, maybe even a little bit longer closure. As they drive by, they're driving right by that scene, that bus down in the embankment. I've spoken with Steve Newhouse, who is the Orange County executive. He told me that injured were taken to Garnett Medical Center here in Middletown. Also to Bon Secours in Port Jervis, which is about 11 miles away, and then some were flown and perhaps driven as well, I'm not sure, but at least flown to Westchester Medical Center. I think there's only 2 or 3 that we've heard at Westchester Medical Center. That, of course, is in Westchester County, about 45 miles south of here. It is the leading and indeed the only level 3 trauma center between New York City and Albany. So they drill for these mass casualty incidents up here all the time. Most of the firefighters in these towns and villages in Orange County are volunteers, but they're excellent volunteers because many of them live up here. They work for the FDNY. So they're some of the best in the business. When they do their shifts in the city, they're as busy as can be. They come back home and they get back to their community by volunteering as first responders in their community, and so they would have been well equipped to respond to a mass casualty incident. Earlier, maybe about half an hour ago, we saw the other buses that the other students were sitting on. We know that they saw terrible things out the window of those buses. We saw them basically turn around and head back towards Middletown, whether they're stopping in Middletown, going to that reunification center, or then heading on to Farmingdale. I'm not exactly sure what the protocol is and what the plan was there with them. Steve Newhouse, the Troop F commander, and other first responders who handled this scene are expected to update the media at around 6 o'clock at the Troop F headquarters, which is in the Crystal Run section of Middletown, only about a 15-minute drive from here. And I believe one of our CBS 2 photographers has made his way a little bit closer to the scene, and we hope to have some of that video shortly. So whatever frantic response there was in the immediate aftermath, it very quickly became organized. The training kicked in. The first responders did what they do best, which is come to the aid of the injured. You know that many of those first responders have children, and so they would have been in a position to say, hey, kiddo, calm down. We got this. We're taking care of you. You're in good hands. And then really, Maurice and Christine, you must join me in thinking about the chaperones who were on this trip, who probably expected the most serious thing they would find would be kids staying up after a curfew, or sneaking out of the hotel for whatever reason, never thinking that they would have to face something like this today. It's a really terrible accident. 1 confirmed dead, many injuries, and as others have said, lives were changed today because of this accident. This is going to be one of the formative experiences for many, many young people who witnessed it and were part of it.
Tony, the whole thing sends a shiver through your spine as you sit here and contemplate this. I have a 9th grader, been on buses just like this on many trips, and I don't even want to think beyond just that at this point. Do we have a sense from first responders? I realize your position, your location, in terms of everybody being accounted for. We're told 45 are on that bus. We've had aerials from the chopper seeing responders looking at the area, examining the bus and maybe even the woods around it. Do we have a sense that everyone's been accounted for at this point?
Don't know, but you know for sure that they would have worked very hard to make sure that everyone was accounted for. You know, on September 11th, I went to a school event in Mount Kisco where students were taking buses to see the Never Forget trailer as part of their 9/11 day in school. And even then, kids coming off a yellow bus, I saw the chaperones count those kids 3 times when they got off the bus, before they went into the trailer, and then when they got on the bus. So all of these schools have protocols to make sure that every kid is accounted for, no kid gets left behind. And you have to believe that they had a manifest, they knew who was on what bus. Who knows? Usually one chaperone for every 5, 6, 8 kids, whatever the protocol might be. But in a chaotic scene, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been in those early moments to really get their arms around, who was where, who was accounted for, who might have been missing. Really just a traumatizing thing for those folks to have gone through.
Tony, I want to make clear to our viewers that the video that you're seeing of the crash site was actually taken earlier this afternoon. The video that you see here now on your screen is live from Tony and his crew there just west of the accident scene. Tony, obviously investigators there now combing the area, looking for evidence, also speaking with eyewitnesses. It's a beautiful day today. Obviously weather likely did not play a role in today's crash. Do you, in your reporting, in the people that you have been able to talk to so far this afternoon, were there any construction areas or any road issues in this particular area that may have caused a problem that you at least know of at this point in time?
Christine, none that I know of at this point in time. And you're right. I mean, it is an absolutely stunning late summer, early fall day here in Orange County. This road is a treacherous road in the winter. It shuts down all the time when they get some snow. They also get high winds here. And so these trucks, and it's a major, it's a major east-west expressway from New England. I mean, this road goes all the way to Boston, right? It becomes the Massachusetts Turnpike on the other side of Connecticut. So this is and then it heads into Pennsylvania. So this is a major east-west thoroughfare with lots of trucks, lots of traffic, and it shuts down all the time in bad weather, but no bad weather here today. And heading west in the late afternoon, you would sometimes have issues with sun glare, but this was the middle of the afternoon. So there's so much, really a rich field for the investigators to take a look at. They will look at the actions of the driver. They will look at the actions of other drivers. They will talk to witnesses. What did you see? What did you notice? There may be some data that comes from the bus. If there was a GPS tracker on the bus, maybe there was a black box on the bus, maybe there even was a camera on the bus. Some of these buses are equipped with that. As Dick Brennan pointed out earlier today, kids are constantly on their phone. It's possible that one of the children on the bus, one of the young people on the bus may have been recording as this happened. And then, it's a protocol as well that a bus driver would be tested. They would draw blood either voluntarily or with a court order if necessary. They would draw blood to test for various intoxicants or medications that might have interfered with the safe operation of the bus. So they have a whole protocol in place. These are experienced investigators with Troop F and with the NYSP, and they'll get to the bottom of this. That those parents on Long Island in Nassau County are going to be demanding a full investigation and a full accounting for what happened to their children who are now affected by this god-awful thing.
In the worst possible way. Tony, stand by. We'll be coming back to you, of course, shortly. Let's go to CBS 2's Shosh Bedrosian right now. She's in Orange County at Orange County Community College, where they set up what they're calling a reunification center. Shosh, what are you seeing and what do you know at this point?
Hey, Maurice, it's very quiet here right now. Here at Orange County Community College here in Middletown, we are expecting families of these children that are on this bus, on any of these buses, to come here to learn more information about the condition of their child, to potentially reunite with some of their children as well. We can only imagine the stress these parents are under right now as they make the trek up from Long Island through the rush hour at this moment. Right up here to Orange County, it took us about an hour and a half to get here. We're currently located about 4 miles from that crash site, probably about right where Tony is standing as well. It's very quiet. We're standing outside of the Physical Education Center here on the campus. We're going to just take a zoom in so you can see what's happening. You have some police officers standing outside of this building. You have some local security in addition to state troopers. It seems as if this crew here is just waiting for the arrival of these families days to come. Right now, we're actually trying to look into the location of where these other buses that we heard are turning around from that crash site. We don't know where they are headed. We don't know if they're heading here, but that's something that we are hoping to learn hopefully within the next hour or so. But just the stress these families are under right now, what these kids had to witness, like Tony said, it's all going through all of our minds, and we're hoping to learn a lot more information right here at this point at this reunification center.
So, I mean, the stress that is going through the veins of the parents and even the students. We're hearing that some of the students that were at the crash site were obviously eyewitnesses to the tragedy and seeing their friends that were injured here. Do they have grief counselors available there at this reunification center if, in fact, those two other buses that were part of this caravan heading to Pennsylvania, if they do end up going to where your location is to meet up with their parents, will they have that sort of emotional help for those students there?
Yeah, Christy, we're still waiting to learn the details if there are grief counselors that will be arriving to this site. We do continue to see more police arrive as well, probably waiting for the influx of family members and relatives to arrive to this scene. But as for grief counselors, we're still trying to piece all the information together as to what will be happening at this site and who will be arriving, and if the buses of the other children who were not involved in this crash will be arriving too. But exactly what you said, the agony, the pain of these parents driving up, not knowing the condition or how their child is doing, or even the ones who are driving up knowing something could be wrong with their child at this time and what they're going through. All of our hearts are with them, and we are just waiting and sitting tight to see what happens here at this reunification site. Christy.
Soch, thank you.
All right, no question our hearts are with those families tonight. That's all we can really think about at this moment. Right now we're going to go to CBS 2 photojournalist Don Collins. He is live at the scene along I-84 near Wawayanda, and we understand there's a bit of a delay here, so we're going to wait till Don comes in. But Don, what are you seeing?
Right now I'm seeing a heavy wrecker back up to the center of the roadway. I guess he's trying to get himself in position to actually hook up to this bus when everything is removed from it and pull it up this ravine. I really can't see the bus from my angle because I'm across the highway, but I do see that wrecker. He's working right now. I have a shot of him. And there's another wrecker to the left of him standing by, I guess, in case he needs any help. We have a lot of police vehicles, and it appears to be like a command center where the fire and police are kind of organizing, or I would say tactically setting up on how to remove and what to do with the scene.
So Don, the urgency isn't there, right? They're in sort of the mode of recovering the vehicle. They feel like it's under control.
Yes, it looks like they're in like a recovery mode right now. Everyone seems to like be getting together to try to come up with a plan, I guess the safest plan, so that no one else is injured, to remove this wreck from the center median of this highway. It appears that there are at least 20, maybe 30 workers out here, police officers as well as fire department members, state troopers, and just heavy wrecker crews out here. Again, it seems like they're trying to come up with a plan, the safest plan, to pull this bus from the ravine.
Okay.
It appears that most of the injured are probably taken away from the scene because it doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency anymore.
It sure doesn't. Okay, CBS 2 photojournalist Don Collins doing nice work for us, getting close to the scene, giving us a feel for the scene at the moment right now. But once again, this bus crash that happened this afternoon at 1:20, a bus that left Farmingdale, Long Island, with 300 kids on 6 buses going to band camp in Pennsylvania, crashing right there off of I-84 in Wawayanda in Orange County, New York.
We don't know the severity of the injuries right now. We do know that there has been one fatality, and we do know that there are many parents right now that are in just absolute worry, agony, stress, the kind that you can't imagine. knowing that their child may have been a part of this accident that took place off of the interstate there on I-84. We do have crews in various locations to bring you the latest information as far as traffic goes. The westbound lanes still remain closed. The eastbound lanes have been reopened, as you saw there from Don's report. We'll continue to monitor the situation there in Middletown, New York, in the area of Middletown, New York. Wayanda is exactly the town where this crash took place. But again, our thoughts and our prayers are with those families involved, those children involved, the bus monitors involved, and of course the bus company. We'll bring you the very latest at the top of the hour at 5 p.m.
This has been breaking news. This is breaking news.
If you're just joining us, we are following breaking news here this afternoon of a bus crash. This is the type of story, Maurice, that no parent wants to hear. A bus carrying band members from Farmingdale to Pennsylvania crashed off of Route I-84. Multiple students have been injured. We are hearing there is one fatality as well. Here is the scene off of I-84 here this afternoon, where the bus went off the embankment and rolled over into a tree surrounded area.
As you started to say there, Christine, this is a nightmare scenario for the school, the parents, the students involved. 6 charter buses left Farmingdale about noon today. They were driving to Pennsylvania to band camp, some 300 kids on 6 buses going to Greeley, Pennsylvania. They had driven about 100 miles, having left Farmingdale, when they got to the town of Wawayanda. This is off of I-84 there in Orange County, when for some unknown reason at this point, the bus went off the road down an embankment, and there you see the result. As you said, 1 person has died. 5 are said to be in serious, is it critical condition at this point? We still don't know the latest on them, but as we watch this nightmare literally playing out in front of us, investigators are on the scene, still combing the area, still combing the wreckage, which, you know, that raises some sort of a red flag almost 3 hours later, what exactly they're looking for. You also saw the traffic nightmare as well, the scenario there for travelers at this hour. Avoid I-84 is what we've been told. There's some traffic there on the ground. CBS 2's Tony Aiello has fought through that traffic, made his way about a quarter mile or maybe a little less from the scene. Tony, what have you got? What can you tell us at this point?
Maurice, we are just west of the crash scene. This is Mount Orange Road. My colleague Chris Calarco is going to zoom past me, and you can see in the westbound lanes the flashing lights way off in the distance there. That's at least 1/10 of a mile, maybe more like 1/4 of a mile. And parked closer to us, difficult to see because there's a tree there, is a helicopter as well. The helicopter in position should they need to do additional transports for whatever reason. The eastbound lanes of I-84 have reopened after a 2-hour, maybe even a little bit longer closure. As they drive by, they're driving right by that scene, that bus down in the embankment. I've spoken with Steve Newhouse, who is the Orange County executive. He told me that injured were taken to Garnett Medical Center here in Middletown. Also to Bon Secours in Port Jervis, which is about 11 miles away, and then some were flown and perhaps driven as well, I'm not sure, but at least flown to Westchester Medical Center. I think there's only 2 or 3 that we've heard at Westchester Medical Center. That, of course, is in Westchester County, about 45 miles south of here. It is the leading and indeed the only level 3 trauma center between New York City and Albany. So they drill for these mass casualty incidents up here all the time. Most of the firefighters in these towns and villages in Orange County are volunteers, but they're excellent volunteers because many of them live up here. They work for the FDNY. So they're some of the best in the business. When they do their shifts in the city, they're as busy as can be. They come back home and they get back to their community by volunteering as first responders in their community, and so they would have been well equipped to respond to a mass casualty incident. Earlier, maybe about half an hour ago, we saw the other buses that the other students were sitting on. We know that they saw terrible things out the window of those buses. We saw them basically turn around and head back towards Middletown, whether they're stopping in Middletown, going to that reunification center, or then heading on to Farmingdale. I'm not exactly sure what the protocol is and what the plan was there with them. Steve Newhouse, the Troop F commander, and other first responders who handled this scene are expected to update the media at around 6 o'clock at the Troop F headquarters, which is in the Crystal Run section of Middletown, only about a 15-minute drive from here. And I believe one of our CBS 2 photographers has made his way a little bit closer to the scene, and we hope to have some of that video shortly. So whatever frantic response there was in the immediate aftermath, it very quickly became organized. The training kicked in. The first responders did what they do best, which is come to the aid of the injured. You know that many of those first responders have children, and so they would have been in a position to say, hey, kiddo, calm down, we got this, we're taking care of you, you're in good hands. And then really, Maurice and Christine, you must join me in thinking about the chaperones who were on this trip, who probably expected the most serious thing they would find would be kids staying up after a curfew, or you know, sneaking out of the hotel for whatever reason, never thinking that they would have to face something like this today. It's a really terrible accident. One confirmed dead, many injuries, and you know, as others have said, lives were changed today because of this accident. This is going to be one of the formative experiences for many, many young people who witnessed it and were part of it.
Tony, the whole thing sends a shiver through your spine as you sit here and contemplate this. I have a 9th grader, been on buses just like this on many trips, and I don't even want to think beyond just that at this point. Do we have a sense from first responders, I realize your position, your location, in terms of everybody being accounted for? We're told 45 are on that bus. We've had aerials from the chopper seeing responders looking at the area, examining the bus and maybe even the woods around it. Do we have a sense that everyone's been accounted for at this point?
Don't know, but you know for sure that they would have worked very hard to make sure that everyone was accounted for. You know, on September 11th, I went to a school event in Mount Kisco where students were taking buses to see the Never Forget trailer as part of their 9/11 day in school. And even then, kids coming off a yellow bus, I saw the chaperones count those kids 3 times when they got off the bus, before they went into the trailer, and then when they got on the bus. So all of these schools have protocols to make sure that every kid is accounted for, no kid gets left behind. And you have to believe that they had a manifest, they knew who was on what bus. You know, who knows, you know, usually one chaperone for every 5, 6, 8 kids, whatever the protocol might be. But in a chaotic scene, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been in those early moments to really get their arms around, you know, who was where, who was accounted for, who might have been missing. Really just a traumatizing thing for those folks to have gone through.
Tony, I want to make clear to our viewers that the video that you're seeing of the crash site was actually taken earlier this afternoon. The video that you see here now on your screen is live from Tony and his crew there just west of the accident scene. Tony, obviously investigators there now combing the area, looking for evidence, also speaking with eyewitnesses. It's a beautiful day today. Obviously weather likely did not play a role in today's crash. Do you, in your reporting, in the people that you have been able to talk to so far this afternoon, were there any construction areas or any road issues in this particular area that may have caused a problem that you at least know of at this point in time?
Chrissy, none that I know of at this point in time. And you're right. I mean, it is an absolutely stunning late summer, early fall day here in Orange County. This road is a treacherous road in the winter. It shuts down all the time when they get some snow. They also get high winds here. And so these trucks, and it's a major, you know, it's a major east-west expressway from New England. I mean, this road goes all the way to Boston, right? It becomes the Massachusetts Turnpike on the other side of Connecticut. So this is and then it heads into Pennsylvania. So this is a major east-west thoroughfare with lots of trucks, lots of traffic, and it shuts down all the time in bad weather, but no bad weather here today. And, you know, heading west in the late afternoon, you would sometimes have issues with sun glare, but this was the middle of the afternoon. So there's so much, really, a rich field for the investigators to take a look at. They will look at the actions of the driver. They will look at the actions of other drivers. They will talk to witnesses. What did you see? What did you notice? There may be some data that comes from the bus. If there was a GPS tracker on the bus, maybe there was a black box on the bus, maybe there even was a camera on the bus. Some of these buses are equipped with that. As Dick Brennan pointed out earlier today, you know, kids are constantly on their phone. It's possible that one of the children on the bus, one of the young people on the bus may have been recording as this happened. And then, you know, it's a protocol as well that a bus driver would be tested. They would draw blood either voluntarily or with a court order if necessary. They would draw blood to test for various intoxicants or medications that might have interfered with the safe operation of the bus. So they have a whole protocol in place. These are experienced investigators with Troop F and with the NYSP, and you know, they'll get to the bottom of this. You know that those parents on Long Island in Nassau County are going to be demanding a full investigation and a full accounting for what happened to their children who are now affected by this god-awful thing.
In the worst possible way. Tony, stand by. We'll be coming back to you, of course, shortly. Let's go to CBS 2's Shosh Bedrosian right now. She's in Orange County at Orange County Community College, where they set up what they're calling a reunification center. Shosh, what are you seeing and what do you know at this point?
Hey, Maurice, it's very quiet here right now. Here at Orange County Community College here in Middletown, we are expecting families of these children that are on this bus, on any of these buses, to come here to learn more information about the condition of their child, to potentially reunite with some of their children as well. We can only imagine the stress these parents are under right now as they make the trek up from Long Island through the rush hour at this moment, right up here to Orange County. It took us about an hour and a half to get here. We're currently located about 4 miles from that crash site, probably about right where Tony is standing as well. It's very quiet. We're standing outside of the Physical Education Center here on the campus. We're going to just take a zoom in so you can see what's happening. You have some police officers standing outside of this building. You have some local security in addition to state troopers. It seems as if this crew here is just waiting for the arrival of these families to come. Right now, we're actually trying to look into the location of where these other buses that we heard are turning around from that crash site. We don't know where they are headed. We don't know if they're heading here, but that's something that we are hoping to learn hopefully within the next hour or so. But just the stress these families are under right now, what these kids had to witness, like Tony said, it's all going through all of our minds, and we're hoping to learn a lot more information right here at this point at this reunification center.
So, I mean, the stress that is going through the veins of the parents and even the students. We're hearing that some of the students that were at the crash site were obviously eyewitnesses to the tragedy and seeing their friends that were injured here. Do they have grief counselors available there at this reunification center if, in fact, those 2 other buses that were part of this caravan heading to Pennsylvania, if they do end up going to where your location is to meet up with their parents, will they have that sort of emotional help for those students there?
Yeah, Christy, we're still waiting to learn the details if there are grief counselors that will be arriving to this site. We do continue to see more police arrive as well, probably waiting for the influx of family members and relatives to arrive to this scene. But as for grief counselors, we're still trying to piece all the information together as to what will be happening at this site and who will be arriving, and if the buses of the other children who were not involved in this crash will be arriving too. But exactly what you said, the agony, the pain of these parents driving up, not knowing the condition or how their child is doing, or even the ones who are driving up knowing something could be wrong with their child at this time and what they're going through. All of our hearts are with them, and we are just waiting and sitting tight to see what happens here at this reunification site. Christy.
Soch, thank you.
All right, no question our hearts are with those families tonight. That's all we can really think about at this moment. Right now, we're going to go to CBS 2 photojournalist Don Collins. He is live at the scene along I-84 near Wawayanda. And we understand there's a bit of a delay here, so we're going to wait till Don comes in. But Don, what are you seeing?
Right now, I'm seeing a heavy wrecker back up to the center of the roadway. I guess he's trying to get himself in position to actually hook up to this bus when everything is removed from it and pull it up this ravine. I really can't see the bus from my angle because I'm across the highway, but I do see that wrecker. He's working right now. I have a shot of him. And there is another wrecker to the left of him standing by, I guess, in case he needs any help. We have a lot of police vehicles, and it appears to be like a command center where the fire and police are kind of organizing, or I would say, tactically setting up on how to remove and what to do at the scene.
So Don, the urgency isn't there, right? They're in sort of the mode of recovering the vehicle. They feel like it's under control.
Yes, it looks like they're in like a recovery mode right now. Everyone seems to like be getting together to try to come up with a plan. I guess the safest plan, so that no one else is injured, to remove this wreck from the center median of this highway. Here's that there are at least 20, maybe 30 workers out here, police officers as well as fire department members, state troopers, and just heavy wrecker crews out here. Again, it seems like they're trying to come up with a plan, the safest plan, to pull this bus from the ravine.
Okay.
It appears that most of the injured are probably taken away from the scene because it doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency anymore.
It sure doesn't. Okay, CBS 2 photojournalist Don Collins doing nice work for us, getting close to the scene, giving us a feel for the scene at the moment right now. But once again, this bus crash that happened this afternoon at 1:20, a bus that left Farmingdale, Long Island with 300 kids on 6 buses going to band camp in Pennsylvania, crashing right there off of I-84 in Wawayanda in Orange County, New York.
We don't know the severity of the injuries right now. We do know that there has been 1 fatality, and we do know that there are many parents right now that are in just absolute worry, agony, stress, the kind that you can't imagine, knowing that their child may have been a part of this accident that took place off of the interstate there on I-84. We do have crews in various locations to bring you the latest information as far as traffic goes. The westbound lanes still remain closed. The eastbound lanes have been reopened, as you saw there from Don's report. We'll continue to monitor the situation there in Middletown, New York, in the area of Middletown, New York. Wawayanda is exactly the town where this crash took place. But again, our thoughts and our prayers are with those families involved, those children involved, the bus monitors involved, and of course the bus company. We'll bring you the very latest at the top of the hour at 5 p.m.
This has been breaking news.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan Rice, live in Chopper 2 up over Wawayanda, Orange County, New York, the site of that horrific accident earlier this afternoon that what we had happen here. There were 6 buses that had left Farmingdale High School heading to a band camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania, and just a few miles west of exit 15. One of those 6 buses went off of the highway into the center median, and you can see it's a bit of a gully between the 2 sides of the highway there. That bus coming to rest here against the trees down here in that ditch between the 2 sides of I-84. Now what we can tell you right now is unfortunately 1 person has been pronounced dead. There were many other injuries as a result of this crash. The cause of that crash not known at this time, and we do have reporters up here in Orange County. We have my colleague Tony Aiello on the scene over here, as well as Shosh Petrosian over at the Family Reunification Center at SUNY Orange County, SUNY Orange College. Now the work continues down here on I-84, the westbound side of I-84 that would run from New York to Pennsylvania. That still remains closed down. You can see quite a few crews still on the scene as they continue to assess the situation down. But what we notice now is we do have these tow trucks that have been put into place. Those are heavy-duty tow trucks that are down there. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to bring that bus out of that ditch and back up to the highway. And we'll zoom in with the camera there a little bit. You can see those workers try to do their best to get that bus out of that ditch and back up onto the highway. You can see quite a bit of damage to that bus. All the windows punched out, obviously, to get the injured off of the vehicle. The back end of that bus, that's where the engine of the bus would be. That's all in the back there as well. As they try to work on trying to get the bus out of the ditch area here. Come back out with the camera there. The left side of your video, that is eastbound I-84. All lanes had been opened on that side of the highway. That's the good news there for travelers through the area. But of course, for commuters, that westbound side will be shut down for quite some time. Exits have a very big distance between them up in this area. About 2 miles to the east of here is where exit 15 is, and it's about 10 miles between exits over here. So obviously, people are going to have a hard time getting around this area of Orange County, circumnavigating this area. But again, crews still doing their best to assess the situation down here. At this point, We do not have any confirmation as to how or why this bus left the highway there. We come back in on the side of the highway, and you can see you do have some guardrail on the side of the roadway there, but not that thick, heavy metal that you would normally see in the New York City area. It's more of a rope, a retainer to keep vehicles from bouncing off of the highway and into the ditch. But unfortunately, that bus came crashing through that barrier and down on its side. Again, the reasoning or what happened there is not known, but you can see what the crews are doing now. They're trying to get the cables in place, and what they're going to do is they have to drag that bus back out of this ditch, back up to the highway. That's the task they have here at hand, and of course the investigation. I believe the NTSB would be involved in a situation that involves a charter bus like this, so a lengthy investigation will be had. And if you look on the top of that bus, you can see where the escape hatches would be. That's where probably some of the people were able to get out of the bus. There's quite a bit of a bend to that bus, as you can see at the top of the bus down to the carriage area there. But again, to recap what's going on over here, about 1:30 this afternoon, that bus went off the highway carrying high school students to a band camp. They were coming from Farmingdale High School in Long Island, heading out to Greeley, Pennsylvania, when the bus went off of the highway. No word yet on the cause of that, but again, we can tell you one person has been killed as a result of this crash. Many other injuries, some of them taken to Garnett Health Medical Center in Middletown, the more serious taken over to Westchester County Medical Center for evaluation. And again, we do know the Family Reunification Center is going to be, or is actually, at the SUNY Orange College over in Middletown. Shows Bedrosian will be there in a few minutes to give us an update on that. Of course, my colleague Tony Aiello, he is on the scene just about a half a mile or so away from here. And he will give us an update from the scene as well. And of course, in a couple of minutes on the CBS News at 5, Maurice Dubois, Christine Johnson, they'll have more for you on what's happening down here. And of course, we'll stay overhead and give you video of the scene as they work to get to the bottom of this. Reporting live in Chopper 2, I'm Dan Rice. The CBS 2 News at 5 will start in just a few minutes. Yep. And 389, go ahead.
This is CBS 2 News at 5.
We have breaking news at 5 today. A bus carrying Farmingdale High School band students has crashed in Orange County, killing one person and injuring several others.
And a live look right now from the scene where that bus went down an embankment, ending up on its side. This is just off the road along I-84. Good evening. I'm Maurice Dubois.
And I'm Christine Johnson. We are learning of multiple injuries tonight, and the mayor of Middletown saying at least 5 people are in critical condition.
The crash happening after 1 this afternoon in the town of Wawanda in Orange County. According to the Farmingdale Union Free School District, the bus was heading to band camp in Pennsylvania. Once again, a live look at the crash site. This is just off of I-84 as investigators try to determine what caused the tragedy.
We have live team coverage. Soch Bedrosian is at a reunification center at SUNY campus in Middletown. Jennifer McLogan is at Farmingdale High School. Let's begin with Tony Aiello. He is near the scene with the latest from there. Tony?
Christine, we can only imagine how the excitement of these students turned to terror as the events of the afternoon unfolded. I'm going to step out of the way and we're going to zoom into the scene. We're about a quarter-mile west of the accident site. It was a little bit after 1 o'clock this afternoon, maybe about 1:20. A convoy of buses that had left Farmingdale, Long Island, heading to Greeley, Pennsylvania. All of a sudden, one of the buses, out of control, through a wire barrier and down the embankment embankment of the highway. We know that one person has been killed. We're told that at least 5 people are in critical condition, and we're told that many other people were injured. In fact, one source is telling me every person who was on the bus, 45 people at last count, every person was taken to a local hospital to be checked out. Everyone got bounced around terribly as the bus slid down the embankment, and again, one person was killed. This afternoon, we have a statement from the New York State Department of Transportation. This is a state road. Quote, "Our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of this terrible crash and their families. The vehicle operator, Regency Transportation of Wisconsin, New York, has valid operating authority from the State Department of Transportation and a valid semi-annual inspection. The driver is properly licensed." Many people have been coming to the scene here to see what they can from a quarter-mile away. We spoke with 2 of them. What do you know about this stretch of road?
Well, I just know once in a while we run it. Me and my son will ride it going from here to Newburgh or wherever we have to go, and it's pretty free driven, you know. It's never blocked up. It's never backed up for no reason. And today I got to work. I come here and both sides are shut down. It's scary.
Scary indeed for everyone who was on the bus, and we know that there were 5 additional buses where students saw, if not the immediate incident, they saw the immediate aftermath. So a frightening afternoon for many, many students, and also a very difficult afternoon for the first responders, literally dozens of them who rushed to the scene. They worked to get a count of the students and the people on the bus. They worked to reach the injured. They worked to get them appropriate medical care, and they worked to send them on their way to hospitals. We know some students, some of the injured, I should say, were taken to Garnett Medical Center. That's not far away in Middletown. Others were taken to Bon Secours Hospital. That's about 11 miles away in Port Jervis. And some were flown to Westchester Medical Center, which is a level 3 trauma center, the best hospital for trauma care between New York City and Albany. So we know that anxious families are coming here from suburban Long Island, from Nassau County. As a matter of fact, just before airtime, a family, a couple, a man and his wife driving in a white SUV came past the site. They're trying to get to Bon Secours Hospital in Port Jervis. They were having trouble because some of the road closures in the area. They didn't want to talk on camera. They said they were trying to stay calm. They had spoken to their daughter. She told them she was banged up, but she was okay. And tonight they are saying a prayer. They count themselves lucky because there's at least one family that can't say their loved one is okay. We know of 1 fatality and 5 people in critical condition. First responders train for days like today. They practice, they prepare, they're ready. The training kicks in, but it's training they wish they never had to use. Maurice, Christine, they had to use it today.
They sure did, Tony. Thank you for that.
All right now let's go to CBS 2's Shosh Bedrosian. She is live in Middletown at what they're calling a reunification center for families. Shosh.
So this is the spot, Maurice and Christine, where families are supposed to come reunite with their children. And I do want to say, I want you to look at this video on your screen. 4 of those buses are actually behind this physical education center where I'm standing right now. 4 of those buses are carrying some of those children in the band who were not involved in this bus crash here. What I did see is that these children were not on the bus. It appears they're actually inside of the building, but family members are starting to come here. They're starting to come inside. We did see a mother. She was holding hands with one of her daughter. It seemed as if she just rushed up here from Long Island, holding her daughter really close as they were running to the front of this entrance, trying to probably just get this good news that their child is here and that their child is okay. We are standing right in front of this center. As you can see, it's not too busy right now, but those buses are located in the back here. You can see right now that there are some police officers in front, state troopers, and some security here outside this physical education center. And inside, once parents do arrive, they are greeted by a table, people sitting behind the table, servicing them, probably trying to help them locate their child. But we are about 4 miles away from the crash site where Tony is standing right now. So Tony mentioned that some families are probably going to that crash site. But right now, in this location, the families are set to reunite if they do come here and their child is okay and was on one of those other buses as well.
Okay, Shosh Bedrosian, thank you so much.
Our team coverage moves now to CBS 2's Jennifer McLogan. She is live at Farmingdale High School, where those buses left from this morning. Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Christina Maurice. We're on Lincoln Street in front of Farmingdale Senior High School. The 6 charter buses out of Regency Transport from Misconset, Long Island, pulled into the parking lot behind me to pick up 300 students from the marching band, from cheerleading squad, and from Kickline. They entered the buses, and mere hours later, an announcement from the superintendent to parents that one of the 6 buses had slid down the embankment and children were injured. Many of the shaken classmates by that time had heard from their friends via social media. They were taken into the auditorium for counseling and support. Administrators, parents, and the Nassau County executive right now are headed to Pennsylvania to help facilitate the scene. The 5 buses not involved in the crash are headed back here. We've just spoke with parents and students who have been sharing their fears and hopes.
Only thing that I know right now is that they're taking everybody home.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So your daughter was on one of the buses?
Yes.
She's okay?
She's fine.
So many of us know them and we're friends with them. It's just a very scary thing, and you wouldn't know that that would happen.
We know these people. Just really puts into perspective how heart-wrenching this incident was. This is like our community. These are our people that we see. It's the things that we do, like our fair that we see all the time.
The administrators here say about 45 children, teachers, chaperones, and the driver were aboard that bus. The bus company says it passed all inspections and has valid operating authority. But parents here are demanding answers, and they plan to speak with administrators here later this evening, where we're reporting live from Farmingdale High School. Jennifer McLogan, CBS 2 News.
Okay,
Maurice
Jennifer.
and Christine, to you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
And we do know of a news conference that is set to start at 6 o'clock tonight. That is when we will expect to hear from state police and also Orange County sheriffs. Here is a live look from state police headquarters in Middletown, where they will give that update in just under an hour. We will bring that to you once it begins.
And there are traffic implications, of course, in a situation like this. A place to avoid, especially westbound. We see eastbound traffic is moving once again. Dan Rice in Chopper 2 right now over the scene. Dan, what do you see?
And as you mentioned, Maurice, the bottom of your video there, that is the eastbound side of 84. They have reopened that up. This area of New York, the exits are very scattered. So the exit for exit 15 is about 2 miles west of here. That's where all the traffic is backed up to. You can see the emergency vehicles down here. It's another 10 miles until you get to the next exit, exit 4. So for people trying to get around the area, I-84 westbound, down and out as in the foreseeable future as they try to get the situation taken care of down over here. Their investigation continues. We can tell you that you do have these 2 heavy-duty tow trucks on the scene. They have been down there trying to hook up the cables to the bus. They will eventually try to bring that bus back up to the highways and continue their investigation, but obviously westbound 84, that will be closed for some time in the near future. Reporting live in Chopper 2, Dan Rice, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Dan, thank you, and we will bring you updates as they come into our newsroom on this deadly bus crash there in Orange County, on the air and online at cbsnewyork.com.
Still to come, much more news of the day, including President Biden saying hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans will be given work permits, why Mayor Adams says that's not enough to combat the asylum seeker crisis in the city.
Plus, an MTA worker speaking out after being